Hidden beneath deserts, jungles, and ancient cities lie discoveries that challenge everything we think we know about history. Objects, structures, and texts have surfaced, then vanished again or were quietly dismissed, leaving behind questions that refuse to be answered. Some suggest human ingenuity beyond recorded knowledge. Others hint at secrets deliberately obscured by time or power. In this video, we will uncover forbidden archaeological finds that authorities, scholars, or even entire governments have tried to keep hidden. From mysterious maps and lost cities to artifacts that defy explanation, each discovery raises doubts about what history is willing to reveal. As you watch, you will explore the stories, the mysteries, and the controversies surrounding these enigmatic finds, and confront evidence that might make you wonder how much of the past has truly been forgotten or concealed. Burrow's Cave, Illinois, USA. Hidden beneath the quiet farmland of southern Illinois, near the small town of Olney, there is said to be a sealed entrance to a cave that few have seen and even fewer are willing to discuss. In the 1980s, a local man named Russell Burrows claimed to have stumbled upon it by accident while exploring a rocky ravine. What began as an ordinary walk through the woods soon unfolded into one of the most controversial archaeological discoveries ever reported in the United States. The cave, if it ever truly existed, was said to contain hundreds of carved stones, strange metallic objects, and even sarcophagi engraved with symbols unlike anything native to North America. Those who believed Burrows spoke of a secret history buried deep within the Midwest. Those who didn't call it an elaborate hoax. Yet what unsettled many was not the debate itself, but the way the site seemed to vanish as quickly as it appeared. According to Burrows, the entrance lay hidden behind a narrow limestone opening along a wooded bluff. He claimed that upon entering, he found a chamber descending deep into the ground, filled with passageways and rooms carved with precision that seemed beyond the skill of early settlers. He described rows of stone tablets inscribed with a mixture of Egyptian hieroglyphs, Phoenician symbols, and Latin letters. The images depicted ships crossing oceans, warriors with foreign armour, and maps linking the ancient world to the heart of North America. Burrows said he carried several artifacts out of the cave, hoping to have them authenticated. But from the moment he revealed his find, secrecy and conflict began to surround him, like the dust that clung to the stones themselves. Archaeologists quickly dismissed his claims. They argued that no legitimate evidence of transoceanic contact had ever been found in the region, and that the mixture of symbols he described was linguistically impossible. When Burrows began showing photographs of the carved stones, many experts noticed inconsistencies in the script and questioned their authenticity. Yet something strange followed. The cave's location, which could have ended the argument once and for all, was never verified. Burrows refused to reveal it, saying he feared looting, but he hinted that others were already trying to control access. Over time, stories began to circulate that certain individuals, private collectors, even government officials, had reached the site and removed its contents long before any formal excavation could take place. Locals recalled unusual activity near the ravine during that period. Trucks arriving at night, men carrying equipment into the woods, and lights that flickered for hours in the darkness. Some said the land had been quietly purchased by an anonymous party not long after Burrows' discovery went public. Others claimed that Burrows himself was silenced through a combination of threats and bribes. When questioned years later, he maintained that he had been cheated out of the site and that everything found within had been taken. He insisted the cave stretched hundreds of feet underground, containing burial chambers, gold artifacts, and even stone coffins holding mummified remains. None of these claims were ever verified, yet photographs of the engraved stones continued to surface, each one depicting a story of a civilization that should not have existed there. The carvings themselves became the centre of the controversy. Many of the stones featured a repeating motif, a sun disk over waves, flanked by figures that appeared to wear Mediterranean-style armour. Others showed pyramids, lions, and strange alphabets that combined familiar ancient forms with unknown symbols. Burrows claimed the artifacts proved that voyagers from the Old World reached America long before Columbus, establishing colonies that later vanished into myth. If true, such evidence would rewrite the accepted history of human migration and trade. Yet institutions refused to test or display the stones, labelling them forgeries before analysis could even begin. Over time, they were sold, traded, and scattered into private collections, making any serious study impossible. Those few who examined them closely found odd details that defied easy dismissal. The engravings were deeply cut into limestone that had aged naturally, and the patina over the carvings suggested great age rather than recent work. Some pieces bore traces of organic material that could have been used as pigment. Others were found embedded with mineral deposits that would have taken centuries to form. Still, without verified provenance or an accessible site, archaeology had no framework in which to place them. And so, the mystery of Burrow's cave was left to drift in a fog of speculation. Over the years, the story refused to die. New witnesses claimed to have seen the cave or handled artifacts from it. Independent researchers tried to retrace Burrow's steps using topographic maps and old interviews. Some even claimed to have located sealed entrances in the bluffs around the Little Wabash River, where air seemed to escape from narrow fissures in the rock. But each investigation ended the same way, with silence, vanished evidence, and warnings not to continue digging. A few researchers reported being followed or having their notes disappear. Others received anonymous letters advising them to abandon the search. By the 1990s, Burrows himself had faded into isolation, maintaining his story but offering no proof. He claimed the cave's contents had been deliberately removed and hidden to prevent public chaos. He spoke of relics linking ancient Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cultures to North America. Proof, he said, that world history had been rewritten to erase evidence of earlier contact. His statements were dismissed as delusions by scholars, yet the persistence of his story kept drawing new believers. For them, the controversy itself was evidence that something powerful was being suppressed. Even today, decades later, the supposed site of Burrow's cave remains unmarked, its location known only through conflicting rumours. Satellite imagery has failed to reveal anything unusual, but locals continue to report strange restrictions on nearby land. Some researchers have noted that the surrounding area lies close to old mining routes, where undocumented tunnels run beneath private property. Others have speculated that the cave might have been intentionally sealed, either to hide the hoax or to protect what was truly inside. In the absence of proof, Burrow's cave exists in a shadowed space between belief and denial. Its artifacts, scattered across basements and forgotten drawers, still carry the faint scratches of a language no one can fully read. Whether born of deception or discovery, the story endures because it touches something ancient in the human imagination. The fear that our understanding of the past is only what we are allowed to know. And somewhere beneath the soil of Illinois, behind a wall of stone and secrecy, the silence still waits to be broken. Dropa stones, China. High in the thin air of the Bayan Karaula range, the landscape feels more lunar than earthly. The wind moves across pale rock and barren slopes, whispering through canyons where few have ever walked. At this altitude, the silence is almost tangible, broken only by the sound of shifting stones beneath tired boots. It was here, in 1938, that an archaeological expedition led by Professor Chi-Pu Tay of Beijing University began surveying a network of caves believed to hold traces of ancient habitation. What they found inside would soon become one of the most puzzling and quietly suppressed discoveries in modern archaeology. When the Chinese expedition arrived in 1938, their goal was to study signs of early settlement among the isolated mountain tribes. The caves, scattered across the cliffs, contained burial chambers lined with skeletal remains. But the skeletons themselves were strange, small in stature with unusually large craniums and delicate frames. The discovery unsettled the researchers, but it was the objects found beside the bones that would alter the course of their study. Lying in the dust were hundreds of perfectly round stone discs, each about a foot across, with a circular hole cut precisely at the centre. They looked uncannily like phonograph records, though weathered by countless ages. Among the dust and bones, they uncovered small stone discs whose surfaces shimmered faintly under the lamplight. Carved into each one were delicate grooves that spiralled inward from the edge toward the centre, forming lines too fine to have been made with primitive tools. The stones were taken back to Beijing for analysis, where technicians discovered something even more baffling. The grooves were not decorative at all. Under magnification, they revealed microscopic inscriptions, symbols arranged with mathematical precision, winding across the surface in a continuous spiral. The markings did not match any known writing system, yet their pattern suggested language, not randomness. The markings carved into their surfaces spiraled inward, as if recounting a story that had no beginning or end. Years later, accounts would claim that a researcher named Dr. Tsumum Nui managed to translate sections of the inscriptions before his work was censored. His alleged findings described a people called the Dropa, who descended from the sky after their spacecraft crashed in the mountains thousands of years ago. The discs, he said, were their records, a plea for peace and a history of exile on a hostile world. The idea was dismissed as fantasy by the scientific establishment, but what troubled many was that the report vanished from archives soon after its mention, leaving only secondary references in obscure journals. Official reports that followed were brief, cautious, and quickly withdrawn. The caves were sealed, the skeletons transferred to unknown storage, and the discs removed from public record. When inquiries were later made to Beijing University, no record of the 1938 expedition could be located. The names of researchers who allegedly participated in the find appeared in no academic listings. It was as though the entire event had been erased from institutional memory. Yet small fragments, notes, photographs, and translated excerpts continued to surface outside China, hinting at the suppressed existence of something extraordinary. Decades later, fragments of the story resurfaced in foreign archives and independent investigations. In the 1960s, Soviet researchers claimed to have examined several of the discs, measuring their composition and structure. They reported that the stones contained unusual metallic traces, including cobalt and other conductive elements, suggesting they might once have been part of a complex electrical or magnetic system. Photographs published briefly in Russian journals showed weathered discs with precise circular incisions, but these images too soon disappeared from public access. Every time the Dropa stones were reintroduced into conversation, documentation seemed to evaporate, replaced by silence or denials. Skeptics called it a myth, believers called it memory. Some pointed to the region's remoteness and the lack of physical evidence as proof that the story was a modern legend. Others argued that the consistency of scattered reports indicated something genuine had been found and later concealed. Anthropologists studying the area noted that local tribes spoke of ancestral visitors from the stars, small people who came down in glowing vehicles and could not return to their home. The myth predated the alleged discovery by centuries. It may have been folklore, or it may have been the last echo of something long forgotten. Even the few surviving stones that reportedly reached private hands carry an atmosphere of secrecy. No museum displays them openly, and no verified photographs exist today. Some say they were confiscated by authorities after attempts to smuggle them abroad. Others claim they still lie buried in state archives, inaccessible to researchers. The physical absence of evidence became its own kind of proof for those convinced of a cover-up. Each missing artifact strengthened the belief that what was found in those mountains contradicted a version of history that could not afford to change. What remains of the Dropa stones legend is not their substance but their shadow, a faint record of discovery followed by swift erasure. The mountains where they were found remain uninhabited, their caves sealed or lost to shifting rock. Official channels deny the expedition ever occurred, yet the story persists in whispers among those who collect fragments of forbidden history. Whether the discs once held a message from another world or were merely a misinterpreted relic of early culture, their disappearance ensured the question could never be answered. In the silence of those mountains, the wind still moves as if carrying voices too ancient to name. Piri Reis map, Ottoman Empire. Amid the dust of forgotten archives, the map surfaced in 1929, hidden within a stack of neglected charts in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace. Curators unrolled the fragile parchment with care, revealing bright pigments that had somehow survived centuries of darkness. The lines traced familiar coasts, yet their arrangement felt oddly dissonant, as if the world had been drawn from a memory too ancient to belong to the 16th century. Few in the room that day understood what they were looking at, and fewer still would dare to question how such a thing could exist. The parchment itself was only a fragment, torn from a larger chart that once encompassed the known world. Faded inscriptions in Ottoman Turkish described distant lands and seas, while strange annotations marked places that should not have been known at the time. The accuracy of the South American coastline startled historians. It aligned with modern cartography far more precisely than any other map from that era. Yet, it was the southern edge of the map, the faint outline beyond the Atlantic, that stirred the most unease. There, beneath an unfinished border, lay the unmistakable contour of a landmass that looked eerily like Antarctica, drawn centuries before its official discovery. When the fragment was first studied in 1929, the Ottoman historian Halil Etemeldem recognized the handwriting as that of Piri Reis, and quietly reported it to the Turkish Ministry of Education. For a brief moment, the find was heralded as a national treasure, until its contents drew international attention. German cartographers, French naval historians, and later the American Hydrographic Office all requested access, yet official copies were slow to appear, and certain details were said to have been omitted from published reproductions. Some researchers later claimed that early photographs of the map showed additional inscriptions that vanished in later archives, as if the record itself had been edited between hands. To understand its maker, one must return to the life of Admiral Piri Reis, a navigator of the Ottoman fleet and a scholar of hidden knowledge. Born in the late 15th century in Gallipoli, he served under his uncle, the Corsair Kemal Reis, gathering information from captured sailors, foreign explorers, and lost charts traded among ports. Piri claimed that his 1513 world map was compiled from 20 older sources, some drawn by Arab geographers, some from the time of Alexander the Great, and at least one said to be from the hands of Christopher Columbus himself. Yet within that admission lay the seed of a greater mystery. If these older maps existed, who first charted the southern lands now buried under ice? What startled researchers most was not the existence of the map, but what it implied. When analysts from the US Hydrographic Office examined it in the mid-20th century, they noted uncanny details: the precise proportion of South America's eastern coast, the positioning of the Falkland Islands, even an apparent understanding of longitudinal distances that would not be possible until the invention of accurate chronometers centuries later. The Antarctic outline, if that was indeed what it showed, appeared free of ice, resembling the subglacial topography that modern seismic surveys would not reveal until the 1950s. The implications were staggering, that someone, long before known civilization, had mapped a world we thought was still in the making. Debates erupted quietly, filtered through layers of caution. Some scholars dismissed the Antarctic resemblance as a coincidence, suggesting that the southern region merely represented a misdrawn extension of South America. Others proposed that Piri Reis had copied fragments of ancient maps passed down from forgotten civilizations, perhaps Atlantean, though such claims were swiftly branded as pseudoscience. What no one could easily explain, however, was the accuracy of the coastal proportions or the inscriptions hinting at lands where the sea never freezes. The map refused to fit neatly within accepted history, existing instead as a stubborn reminder that knowledge does not always move forward. It sometimes vanishes and returns in pieces. Behind official denials, whispers spread among those who studied forbidden archives and unapproved theories. Some spoke of pre-Diluvian cartographers, survivors of an older world who had recorded the Earth before the last great ice ages redrew its shape. Others hinted that secret collections in the Vatican and Istanbul might hold corroborating charts, deliberately withheld from public view. There were even accounts of German researchers during the Second World War requesting access to the original map, believing it might prove that humanity's understanding of the poles stretched far deeper than recorded exploration. Each inquiry seemed to vanish into bureaucratic silence, as though someone, somewhere, preferred the question to remain unanswered. In the 1950s, during the height of Cold War exploration, fragments of the Piri Reis map were reportedly examined under military commission. A declassified memorandum from the US Air Force Cartographic Division mentioned its unexpected accuracy regarding the Antarctic coast, prompting internal debate on whether such data could assist polar navigation. Although no formal conclusions were published, the document's existence hinted at renewed interest in ancient sources that seemed to know more than they should. The map, once a curiosity of Renaissance geography, had become a quiet matter of strategic relevance. And yet the map endures, unaltered and unrepentant, preserved behind glass as both artifact and accusation. Its pigments still cling to the parchment, its edges still whisper of hands long vanished. No definitive explanation has ever erased its enigma. No study has comfortably confined it to error or coincidence. Visitors who stand before it often describe a peculiar sensation, that the map is not showing them the world as it was, but as it once had been known, before time rewrote the coastlines and memory surrendered to history. As time pressed its weight upon the parchment, a truth slipped into slumber never meant for the living to uncover. Acámbaro figurines, Mexico. It began with a stumble of the shovel against something hard. In the summer of 1944, a German immigrant and hardware merchant named Waldemar Julsrud was riding his horse along the base of El Toro mountain, just outside the quiet town of Acámbaro in central Mexico. When his helper began digging into the dusty soil, shards of clay emerged, first a broken figure, then another, until dozens were gathered in a single afternoon. The shapes were crude yet deliberate, their forms familiar and unsettling. Within the dust of an ordinary hillside, Julsrud believed he had unearthed evidence of something far older than anyone was prepared to admit. Spread across the dry earth, the objects seemed alive beneath the dust. The figurines varied wildly in shape and style. Some depicted men and women, others strange hybrid creatures, and a number that appeared unmistakably reptilian. Their surfaces bore the marks of human hands, etched with scales, ridges and patterns too precise to be accidental. Many seemed to represent creatures with long tails, horned heads, and massive bodies, images that mirrored the scientific reconstructions of dinosaurs. However, no such fossils had ever been found in the region. Each piece seemed to whisper the same quiet impossibility, that whoever made them had seen beings that should have vanished millions of years before the first humans appeared. As word spread through the small town of Acámbaro, Julsrud's collection grew at a pace no one could explain. With the help of local farmers and labourers, he gathered more than 30,000 clay figures in a span of a few years, all reportedly drawn from the same area. He catalogued them obsessively, arranging the pieces by type and subject: warriors, serpents, and beings locked in combat. By the time archaeologists took notice, the collection filled entire rooms, a private museum of the inexplicable housed in the merchant's modest home. The scale of it challenged belief, the implication of it even more so. In the years that followed, researchers began to draw quite a few parallels between Julsrud's find and other unexplained artifacts unearthed across Mesoamerica. Small clay figures resembling extinct animals had been reported decades earlier near Comalcalco and Tepatitlan, though most were dismissed as forgeries before serious study could begin. Some of these pieces, preserved in private collections, bore the same burnished surface and crude yet deliberate craftsmanship seen in Acámbaro. The repetition of such designs across distant regions suggested either a shared cultural origin or a pattern of suppression that extended beyond a single town in Guanajuato. Doubt followed quickly. Mexican archaeologists and foreign scholars dismissed the discovery as an elaborate hoax, insisting the figurines were of recent origin. Their creators' locals paid to bury and dig them up for payment. Yet no one could explain the sheer quantity or variety of the artifacts, nor the consistency of their aging surfaces. A team from the Instituto Nacional de Antropología e Historia was sent to investigate, but their findings were never publicly released. Rumours circulated that the officials who visited the site confiscated several crates of figurines for further analysis, though they were never returned. Julsrud's reputation suffered, and the discovery, once a point of fascination, soon became an embarrassment. Laboratory tests only deepened the unease. In the 1960s and again in the 1970s, samples of the Acámbaro clay were subjected to thermoluminescence dating at independent facilities. Some results suggested the figurines could be as much as 6,000 years old. Others placed them within modern centuries. Each result contradicted the last, and each testing body faced quiet pressure to distance itself from the controversy. One laboratory reportedly withdrew its findings after unnamed officials questioned the validity of the methods used. The conflicting data left the figurines in an academic limbo, too old to be dismissed outright, yet too disruptive to be accepted as genuine. Locals whispered that the collection had drawn unwanted attention. After Julsrud died in 1964, strangers were seen visiting the property, removing boxes under the cover of darkness. Some said the remaining figurines were reburied in nearby hills to protect them from confiscation. Others claimed a portion of the collection had been moved to private hands, hidden in storerooms across Mexico and the United States. Those who had once helped dig for the artifacts later refused to speak of them. By the 1980s, what remained of Julsrud's museum was a shadow of its former self. Dust-covered shelves, broken fragments, and photographs of a find no institution dared to acknowledge. Attempts to reopen the investigation surfaced sporadically through the late 20th century. In 1999, an independent researcher named Charles Hapgood obtained permission to re-examine a portion of the collection, documenting the figurines' diversity with photographic precision. His findings were never widely circulated, though notes from his archive mention missing specimens and sealed storage crates that museum officials refused to unseal. Later visitors to Acámbaro claimed that entire sections of the collection had disappeared, their inventory numbers reassigned to unrelated artifacts. It was as if history itself was being rewritten, one box at a time. Now the remaining figurines rest in dim storage, their details fading under layers of neglect. Visitors who are allowed to see them describe a strange unease, as though the clay itself carries a memory that cannot be explained. Some resemble known prehistoric creatures with uncanny accuracy. Others suggest forms that have never been catalogued. Whether they are ancient relics or modern creations, their origin story remains entangled in secrecy and denial. Even the land from which they came has grown silent, its dig sites lost to erosion and time. Perhaps the truth lies buried not in the soil, but in what the world refuses to remember. Lovelock Cave Giants, Nevada, USA. For generations, the story of towering red-haired beings was treated as an allegory, a myth passed down through Paiute tradition to explain the traces of violence that seemed older than memory. Scholars spoke of the tale as symbolic, an imagined conflict between tribes, exaggerated by time and storytelling. Yet beneath that dismissal lay a curious persistence. The Paiute had never changed their words, never softened the claim that an ancient race of giants once roamed their valleys, driven at last into a cave and burned alive to end their reign of terror. Yet the Paiute never altered their account, even when outsiders laughed. They spoke of the Sitakar, pale-skinned and red-haired, who towered above ordinary men and consumed human flesh. Their name meant tule eaters, after the fibrous reeds they wove into boats, and their memory lingered in local geography, in songs, in the quiet caution of oral history. It was not a story told for wonder, it was one told as a warning. To those who inherited it, the cave in which these beings perished was real, its ashes still marked by the sins of the past. It was only by accident a century ago that the legend began to intersect with archaeology. In 1911, guano miners working near Lovelock, Nevada, broke through a crust of compacted earth and entered a cavern sealed for ages. The air was thick and acrid, the ground layered with droppings that had accumulated over centuries. The men were not historians, they were labourers extracting fertiliser, but their picks and shovels soon struck objects that did not belong to their trade. Inside the cavern's stale air, the miners uncovered remnants of an unknown past. They found baskets woven with extraordinary precision, sandals larger than any they had seen, and stone tools still sharp despite their age. The bones came next, first scattered fragments, then nearly complete skeletons, long-limbed and massive, some with tufts of what appeared to be reddish hair clinging to the skulls. At first they thought they had stumbled upon a burial site of an extinct tribe, but the size of the remains unsettled them. The femurs were longer than expected, the jawbones broader, the skulls oddly proportioned. Among the findings were bones that defied reason, and soon word spread beyond Lovelock. Collectors arrived, followed by local officials and eventually by representatives from the University of California and the Smithsonian Institution. Excavations between 1912 and 1924 yielded over 10,000 artifacts, woven mats, wooden decoys shaped like ducks, carved stones and mummified human remains. Yet the measurements noted in early field reports were strangely inconsistent, some suggesting that at least a few skeletons reached nearly 8 feet in height. These details appeared in letters and journals, but were quietly omitted from later publications. Writing in careful detail to friends and colleagues, Lovelock resident and mining engineer John T. Reed described what he claimed to have seen before the bones vanished from the site. He described skulls large enough to fit over a man's head and sandals measuring more than 15 inches in length. Local newspapers echoed his astonishment, publishing brief notices that soon vanished from circulation, their archives later found to be missing or incomplete. Even a photograph once said to show one of the massive skulls, displayed in a small Nevada museum, was quietly taken down in the 1940s and never recovered. What survived were second-hand accounts and fragments of correspondence, scattered evidence of a discovery that someone somewhere preferred to forget. For a brief time, scientists catalogued and compared the remains, attempting to situate them within the known timeline of indigenous cultures in Nevada. Some concluded the bones were simply those of unusually tall individuals from the ancient Lovelock culture, dated roughly 4,000 years old. Others were less certain, troubled by the combination of red hair and exaggerated proportions. A few specimens were reportedly sent to museums for analysis, but by mid-century references to them began to vanish. What had once been a regional curiosity slipped quietly into the shadows of forgotten archives. The Paiute observed this silence with familiar patience. Their story, after all, had already survived dismissal once before. To them, the archaeologists were latecomers, rediscovering what had never been lost. The charred layer of ash at the back of the cave, the twisted fragments of bone within it, all were confirmations, not mysteries. Where the scientists hesitated, the oral records spoke with clarity. These were the remains of the Site Ka, destroyed in fire when humanity reclaimed its land. Between the realm of folklore and the rigor of science, the cave stood at the uneasy border where both refused to yield. Skeptics argued that the legends of giants were later embellishments, born from misinterpreted remains of ordinary stature. Others noted that red hair can appear when black pigment decomposes after long burial, and that skeletal distortion can result from mineralization. The explanations were reasonable, but they carried an unease, a need to flatten what could not easily be classified. Even as the cave was sealed to protect what remained, stories continued to circulate of missing specimens, unmarked boxes in museum basements, and a photograph once shown but never recovered. Now, the cave rests behind locked gates, hidden within the sun-bleached ridges outside Lovelock, its entrance guarded not by mystery but by disinterest. Dust settles where the miners once dug, and silence fills the chamber that once held so many questions. The Paiute still remember the name of the Site Ka, still tell of how the earth itself sealed their fate, and whether the bones were ever as large as the old stories claimed may no longer matter, for somewhere beneath the layered stillness of that Nevada desert, something waits that refuses to be fully forgotten. But sometimes, when the wind moves through the sealed mouth of the cave, locals swear they hear something too deep to belong to the living. Koso Artifact, California, USA. It was the kind of discovery that should have been impossible, the sort of contradiction that forces history to fold in on itself. A machine-like object found sealed with an ancient stone defied both geological logic and human chronology. Before anyone could even agree on what it was, it had already become something larger, a symbol of the uneasy border between science and the unknown, an artifact that seemed to whisper of a forgotten epoch beneath the deserts of California. The object was unearthed by chance in the spring of 1961, when 3 amateur rock hunters, Wallace Lane, Virginia Maxey, and Mike McSell, were scouring the dry hills near Olancha, a quiet stretch of the Owens Valley framed by the Sierra Nevada. Their hobby was simple. They searched for geodes, small mineral treasures formed by volcanic activity, hoping to find crystals they could sell in their shop. But when McSell's saw blade struck something unyielding, the moment marked the beginning of one of archaeology's most persistent enigmas. Inside the rock was not a cavity of quartz, but an object that looked disturbingly manufactured. When examined more closely, its structure resembled no known artifact of its supposed age. The outer layer was composed of hardened clay, fossil shells, and pebbles, suggesting it had been subjected to immense pressure over long geological periods. Encased within was a metallic cylinder, rusted yet intact, surrounding a porcelain core capped by a metallic pin. It was nearly identical to a spark plug, yet the rock itself appeared to predate not only human invention, but humanity itself. Early X-rays revealed patterns consistent with engineered components, wires, coils, and symmetry too deliberate to be random. The rock encasing it told another story, one written in the slow, unhurried rhythm of time. Some claimed the material was at least 500,000 years old, a figure drawn from rough geological comparisons. Others argued it was only tens of thousands, yet even that reduced estimate defied explanation. Rocks of this type form under specific environmental conditions that require extraordinary timescales. If the artifact truly had been sealed during that process, it implied an impossibility, a machine embedded in stone from an era when humans were still emerging from the African savanna. Further testing was attempted, though the results only deepened the confusion. According to early accounts, the inner metal responded to magnets, suggesting it was ferrous, possibly an alloy. The porcelain was fine and precisely shaped, resembling the ceramic used in modern electrical insulators. One photograph showed the end of a threaded bolt protruding through the stone, suggesting a device designed for assembly. These details left geologists uneasy. If it were a hoax, it was a remarkably skilled one, yet no motive or perpetrator ever surfaced. News of the artifact spread quickly through California's press, where curiosity often outran caution. The Los Angeles Herald and smaller regional papers ran sensational headlines describing a 500,000-year-old spark plug. Radio hosts debated whether it was proof of time travel or a remnant of a lost civilization. Archaeologists, however, largely ignored it, dismissing the case as unverified hearsay. The artifact itself was said to have been sent for analysis, yet no official documentation from a recognized lab was ever produced. Within months, the find had slipped from public scrutiny into the uncertain realm of rumor. Speculation filled the void that evidence left behind. Some fringe theorists proposed that the artifact was a relic from an advanced, pre-human society wiped from history. Others tied it to the notion of out-of-place artifacts, objects that appear to exist outside their chronological context, challenging accepted timelines. Still others suggested something even stranger, a time displacement event, where objects from the present could be trapped in the deep past through unknown physical processes. Whatever the explanation, each interpretation carried the same unsettling undertone, that the artifact might be a glimpse of a reality science wasn't ready to accept. Over the decades, skeptics attempted to close the case by identifying the object as a 1920s champion spark plug, likely encased in a concretion that formed around it after being buried in wet sediment. Geologist Paul Heinrich and other researchers compared photos of the Koso artifact to vintage spark plugs and found striking similarities. Their conclusion was simple: the so-called mystery was an example of misidentification amplified by folklore. Yet the debate never fully settled, largely because the original artifact could not be re-examined. Its whereabouts had become uncertain, and the samples that once surrounded it had vanished. Confusion deepened as the artifact's supposed owners disagreed on the details of its fate. Some claimed it had been misplaced, others that it had been sold or stolen. A few insisted it remained in private hands, locked away in an unknown collection. Without the physical object, every claim became speculation. Only a handful of black and white photographs survive, grainy, unevenly lit images showing the cylindrical shape encased in rough stone. They are the final witnesses to a mystery that refuses to die. In the years since, the Koso artifact has become a quiet legend in the shadow world of forbidden archaeology. It appears in obscure publications, whispered among those who collect tales of anomalies and suppressed finds. To believers, it stands as evidence that our understanding of human history is incomplete, that remnants of impossible technology occasionally rise to the surface like ghosts from a forgotten age. To skeptics, it is a cautionary tale, a reminder of how easily coincidence and curiosity can masquerade as revelation. All that endures now are a handful of photographs and uncertain accounts, fragments of a story that should have been simple, yet never found its shape. The desert where it was found has long since shifted under the sun, swallowing evidence beneath dust and time. And yet the questions persist, echoing in the silence left behind by an artifact that may or may not have existed as described. Some say the earth occasionally reveals what time was never meant to remember, and the Koso hills remain silent, holding their secrets somewhere beneath the dust. Longyou Caves, China. When the water began to drain from the ancient pond near Longyou, no one expected what would emerge beneath. The villagers had long believed the pools scattered across Zhejiang province were bottomless, remnants of forgotten springs or flooded quarries from some distant past. But as pumps roared and the surface sank, the myth gave way to stone, smooth, deliberate, and impossibly precise. It was the summer of 1992 when the first glint of carved sandstone broke through the muddy shallows, revealing what would soon be called one of the greatest unsolved feats of ancient engineering ever found in China. A labyrinth of stone lay beneath the surface, every wall marked by a symmetry too deliberate to be chance. When the chamber was fully exposed, what confronted the villagers defied sense. Ceilings that soared high enough to swallow sound, columns aligned in geometric harmony, and surfaces covered in chisel marks, millions of them, each stroke uniform, as though guided by a single invisible hand. The air was heavy, the temperature steady, and the silence unbroken by any echo, as if the space itself absorbed the noise of the living. There were no signs of habitation, no soot from fires, no artwork to suggest ritual or belief, only patterns carved endlessly into the walls waiting to be read. Each chamber stretched outward like a cathedral, its scale so vast that early explorers struggled to grasp the enormity. Archaeologists eventually identified 24 separate caves, each carved directly into solid sandstone and connected by narrow corridors or hidden gaps. Some of the caverns measured more than 30 meters high and extended hundreds of meters in length, yet their ceilings had never collapsed in 2,000 years. The precision of their alignment, the consistency of their structure, and the absence of collapse led engineers to one conclusion. Whoever built them understood both mathematics and material strength far beyond what the region's known history could explain. Yet nowhere in China's vast historical archives is there mention of their creation. The nation's dynastic records, meticulous in detail, preserve the names of minor officials, temple renovations, and even tax disputes from the same region and era, yet remain silent about the excavation of 24 monumental caverns. Not a single document, inscription, or legend offers a clue to who built them or why. For a civilization renowned for recording even the most mundane bureaucratic events, such an omission borders on the impossible. This silence has become part of the mystery itself, as though the Longyou caves were meant to exist outside of written time. Modern researchers attempted to reconstruct the method of excavation, but every simulation led to implausibility. The sheer volume of material removed, an estimated 1 million cubic meters of rock, would have required the labour of thousands over decades, using tools and techniques that should have left abundant debris. Yet no trace of spoil heaps, discarded tools, or worker settlements has ever been found. Geologists confirm the sandstone is extremely hard, requiring significant effort even with modern instruments. Some propose that the builders worked in teams under torchlight, carefully marking out patterns to keep the interior stable, but no soot or residue remains to support the theory. The stone surfaces are clean, untouched by smoke or damage, suggesting light without flame or an unknown method of illumination. Others suggested that the caves were not dwellings at all but monuments to something forgotten. Some scholars compared the symmetry and layout to early imperial mausoleums, while others linked them to ancient flood myths or subterranean sanctuaries meant to honour celestial forces. A few local stories speak of lost kingdoms swallowed by the earth, of emperors who sought to hide their knowledge from the sky. Alternative theorists, drawn to the perfection of the carvings, proposed that the site represented an earlier, more advanced culture erased from record, a society whose memory survived only as a whisper in stone. None of these ideas has been proven, yet none can be entirely dismissed. The true unease lies not in what surfaced, but in what refused to appear. The caves contain no bones, no tools, no remnants of water channels or dwellings. Every inch of the sandstone bears the same crosshatched texture, as though the walls themselves were a message or a ritual act repeated beyond meaning. Even the floor slopes and patterns are consistent across chambers, separated by meters of untouched rock, implying centralized planning or a single phase of construction. And though the caves remain perfectly preserved, their existence defies geological logic. No collapse, no major erosion, no sign of natural decay despite the centuries. Across the carved walls of Longyou, efforts to trace their age through sediment and weathering have only deepened the confusion. Some researchers argue they were created more than 2 millennia ago, around the time of the Qin or early Han dynasties, yet that period offers no matching record of such an enterprise. Others believe the caves were carved much later, though the absence of historical mention still challenges the timeline. Ground-penetrating scans have hinted at undiscovered chambers deeper within the hill, but excavation has been halted out of fear that disturbing the balance could trigger collapse. Whatever secrets remain below, they seem determined to stay buried. Captivating scholars and seekers in equal measure, the Longyou site has for years stood as a meeting ground between reason and the unknown. The Chinese government has preserved it as a cultural monument, but even official reports acknowledge the unanswered questions. Visitors describe a strange quiet within the chambers, a muffled weight to the air that feels less like peace than absence. Some claim that if you speak softly, your words are swallowed mid-sentence, lost in the same silence that has guarded the caves since their creation. In a nation defined by continuity, this anomaly stands apart, a monument without a name, a masterpiece without a story. What lingers in the shadows of those halls is not emptiness, but intention turned to stone. Copper Scroll of Qumran, Israel. Unlike the fragile texts of the ancients, this one was born to endure. While parchment and papyrus crumbled into dust, the copper scroll defied decay, its surface catching the light like a buried memory dragged from the earth. It was a document that refused to be forgotten, even as the centuries tried to silence it. Yet what it preserved was not faith, nor myth, but a secret so tangible that even now, its weight can still be felt through the corroded metal that holds it. When the team reached the depths of Cave 3, they found what no one had imagined. It was 1952 and the Dead Sea Scroll discoveries had already stunned the world, but nothing in the scholars' experience prepared them for this. Amid fragments of leather scrolls lay two brittle cylinders of copper, their green-tinged edges pressed tight by centuries of mineral growth. At first, the excavators mistook them for discarded tools or remnants of ancient storage. Only when the light caught the faint trace of engraved letters did they realize that what they held was not an object, but a message. Its surface was sealed with centuries of green corrosion, its inner words trapped in metal folds too rigid to unroll. The decision was made to cut the scroll apart in a laboratory at the University of Manchester. There, under precise tools and cautious hands, the ancient cylinders were sliced into strips like pages of an unwilling book. What emerged from the interior was startling. Columns of text written in an uneven Hebrew script, etched with deliberate care. The letters glinted faintly as if the metal itself still remembered the hand that carved them. The words etched upon the metal spoke not of prophecy but of wealth beyond imagining. Each section described locations, measurements and quantities, vessels of gold, jars of silver, scrolls of precious materials, all said to be hidden in places scattered across the Judean wilderness. It was unlike any other Dead Sea text. There were no hymns, no laws, no sermons. Instead, it read like a catalogue of secret deposits, a treasure list written with the precision of an inventory clerk but the tone of a riddle. Interpretation divided even the most disciplined scholars. Some argued that the listings were literal, pointing to an immense hoard concealed before the Roman siege of Jerusalem. Others saw symbolism in the language, numbers chosen for meaning rather than measure, directions meant to evoke spiritual truths instead of coordinates. Between these views stretched an uncomfortable silence, one that hinted that perhaps both sides were wrong, and that the scroll's real intent was something far older and far less earthly. Some proposed that the items described once filled the sacred chambers of Jerusalem's lost temple. They suggested priests may have hidden them away as war approached, sealing their knowledge in copper so that the record could survive exile and ruin. If true, the scroll represented not only unimaginable riches, but the last echo of a vanished sanctuary. To imagine the temple's vessels buried beneath stone and sand was to imagine holiness entombed, faith locked beneath the desert floor. Searches were launched across the Judean hills. Expeditions traced the clues carved into the metal, measuring distances, comparing the text with ancient topography. Yet each attempt failed. The desert yielded nothing. Caves were found, explored and emptied, only to reveal ordinary earth and the bones of time. Each journey deepened the mystery. If the treasure had existed, it was gone long before the words that described it were rediscovered. The copper scroll had become a map to something that might never have been. Others began to wonder if the scroll was less a map than a warning. Perhaps it was meant to mislead the unworthy, to draw away those who sought riches rather than reverence. Some scholars pointed out that its tone lacked the sanctity found in other Qumran writings. It was dry, methodical, almost bureaucratic, as if written by someone cataloguing not holy relics but forbidden stores. There were even whispers that the scroll might conceal esoteric knowledge, coded to appear mundane. Its meticulous directions could be linguistic traps, each phrase disguising a different layer of meaning lost to modern translation. Today, the copper plates rest under careful light in a man's museum, their surface stabilised yet still scarred by age. Visitors who peer into the glass see only oxidised fragments, but researchers continue to photograph and scan every groove in the hope that some overlooked nuance will surface. Decades of study have failed to reveal the treasure or the truth, but the text remains alive, whispered about in circles that span from archaeologists to theologians to those who trade in rumours of lost gold. Few remember that when the scroll was first divided, its pieces emitted a faint metallic scent, sharp and dry, as though the air within had not been breathed since antiquity. The technicians recorded how fine grains of reddish dust rose from the newly opened seams, settling across their gloves. For a moment, they said, it felt as if they had trespassed into a sealed world, one that had waited in silence for 2,000 years. That moment passed, but the feeling lingered, a sense that what had been revealed was not a discovery, but a disturbance. The scroll's final lines are the most cryptic of all. They speak of a place in the valley of Acámbaro where a measure of silver lies under the stairs with the vessel names not written. To some, this is the clue that binds the whole text together. To others, it is a deliberate obscuring gesture, a closing riddle meant to ensure that the secret remains unreachable. Each interpretation deepens the same paradox. The closer we come to reading the copper scroll, the further we seem from understanding why it was written at all. It may be that the treasure was never meant to glitter, but to endure in silence, guarding what it will not tell. Ica stones, Peru. They were said to tell stories no human should have known, their smooth volcanic surfaces etched with scenes that defied every known chronology of life on Earth. Across the dry winds of southern Peru, whispers grew of stones buried in desert caves, objects that seemed to hold knowledge from a time before humanity, or perhaps from a world that had watched and vanished. The carvings were neither crude nor random, they were deliberate, intricate, as though the stones themselves had been chosen to remember what the soil had long forgotten. In the small town of Ica, a physician began to gather them as if preserving a vanished truth. Dr. Javier Cabrera d'Arquea, a respected doctor and professor, received his first engraved stone in 1961, a gift from a local farmer who claimed to have unearthed it near the Ocucalle River. The image, a fish resembling a long-extinct species, caught Cabrera's attention immediately. Soon he began acquiring more, paying locals for any they could find. Within a decade, his modest home had transformed into a labyrinth of shelves, each filled with enigmatic stones that seemed to whisper an impossible history. Each stone revealed a world that should never have existed. Men hunted and tamed dinosaurs, surgeons performed organ transplants, astronomers charted stars with precision instruments, and maps depicted continents that no longer matched the Earth we know. Some carvings showed celestial spheres, others strange hybrid creatures, and a few bore what looked like detailed genetic diagrams. The scenes were executed with an accuracy that unsettled scientists who examined them, for the artists appeared to understand anatomy, astronomy, and geology beyond their supposed time. The origin of the carvings, however, proved as elusive as their message. Villagers spoke of discovering the stones in ancient riverbeds and sand-filled caves stretching into the arid valleys around Ocucalle. Archaeologists sent to investigate found nothing conclusive. No layers of habitation, no consistent dating of the soil where the stones allegedly rested. Yet the material itself, andesite, was common to the region, suggesting that the objects were at least native to the landscape, if not to its known history. To Cabrera, the images were not myths but memory. He believed the stones recorded the achievements of a forgotten civilization, one that predated recorded history by millions of years. In his writings, Cabrera proposed that these people, whom he called the Glyptolithic man, possessed advanced knowledge of biology, astronomy, and medicine. He argued that they were humanity's predecessors, beings who flourished in an age before cataclysmic floods erased their existence. The carvings, he said, were a library, an archive of what they knew, preserved in stone for a species that might one day rediscover it. Official investigations soon branded the stones as forgeries. In 1973, the Peruvian government, embarrassed by the growing international attention, declared them hoaxes after a local craftsman admitted to carving similar stones for tourists. He claimed to use dental drills and pocket knives to mimic ancient styles, selling them to collectors who desired the mystery more than the truth. Archaeologists dismissed the entire collection, citing the absence of proper excavation records and the suspiciously modern techniques some pieces displayed. Yet the sheer number of stones defied easy dismissal. Cabrera's collection exceeded 11,000 pieces, many showing stylistic consistency impossible to sustain by casual imitation. Some stones were polished smooth and aged with natural patinas that would have been difficult to forge convincingly. Even the confessed hoaxers could not explain where Cabrera's earliest pieces, those he received before the tourist trade began, had originated. The uniform motifs, the repetitive themes of dinosaurs and celestial knowledge, hinted at a coherence that suggested something more organised, something deliberate. Under the scrutiny of modern science, the Ica stones have been examined using microscopic imaging and spectrometry, revealing new details of their etchings. Some researchers note traces of wear consistent with age and chemical weathering, while others detect tool marks suggesting modern carving techniques. Yet the debate remains unresolved. Certain patterns appear too precise and consistent to be purely accidental, while other aspects align suspiciously well with techniques accessible to mid-20th century artisans. The stones have thus become a case study not only in archaeology, but in the psychology of belief, how a single collection can ignite global fascination, scientific scrutiny, and enduring controversy all at once. Over the years, the debate grew more fantastical than factual. Some claimed the carvings were remnants of an extraterrestrial encounter, others saw them as evidence of time travelers recording the evolution of Earth. Fringe theorists compared them to artifacts in Egypt and Mesopotamia, proposing a global prehistoric civilization that shared symbols and scientific understanding long before modern man. Scientists countered that such claims ignored evidence and reason, but each attempt to bury the legend seemed only to strengthen its allure. The Ica stones had entered that peculiar realm where disbelief itself becomes part of the myth. In his final years, Cabrera turned his home into a sanctuary of forbidden memory. Visitors to his private museum recalled the strange stillness of the rooms, walls lined with engraved stones glinting in the dim light as if watching. Cabrera spoke of them not as objects, but as voices, messages left behind for those willing to listen. He never retracted his belief that they proved humanity's forgotten origin, nor did he show doubt even when accused of deceit. When he died in 2001, his collection remained where he had placed it, silent beneath layers of dust and conviction. Once the final traces of light vanish from the Ica shelves, what remains are the stones, enduring and quietly waiting for belief to come back. Baghdad Battery, Iraq. Somewhere between clay and copper, a faint pulse of power seems to linger across the ages. A simple cylinder, unassuming at first glance, holds within its layered construction a riddle that has confounded scientists and historians for decades. Its existence suggests knowledge that should have been impossible in the era of Mesopotamian ziggurats and cuneiform tablets, a hum of electricity faintly echoing across millennia, yet fully silent to human ears. When Koenig first examined the curious cylinder, he sensed a question with no answer. In 1938, German archaeologist and museum curator Wilhelm Koenig stumbled upon the artifact while cataloguing items from the Babylonian region of Iraq. The clay cylinder, sealed with bitumen and containing a copper tube surrounding an iron rod, immediately struck him as peculiar. It seemed functional, designed for a purpose lost to history rather than decorative or ceremonial. Koenig's find was part of a larger puzzle hidden in the ruins of Kujut Rabu. The cylinder was discovered among hundreds of fragments, pottery shards, and clay vessels from Parthian-era settlements. Archaeologists noted that the object seemed utilitarian, yet the metal components of the Baghdad battery were entirely anomalous. No other artifact nearby bore similar engineering, suggesting that this device represented a singular experiment or knowledge isolated from everyday life. Its placement in a mundane domestic context only deepened the mystery. Was it a secret technology used by a select few, or merely a symbolic object whose true function had been forgotten? The components, simple yet precise, suggested a purpose beyond ordinary craft. The clay, fired to durability, formed a cylinder just a few inches tall, while a rolled copper sheet lined the interior. An iron rod sat at its centre, insulated by the surrounding clay and sealed with asphalt. The design was meticulous. Every measurement hinted at deliberate construction. Even without knowing its function, one could feel the intelligence behind its making, a faint whisper of comprehension that stretched far beyond its apparent time. Modern tests hinted at a current that should not exist. Scientists and enthusiasts have attempted to reconstruct the device, filling it with vinegar or lemon juice to simulate electrolytes. A weak electrical charge flows through the iron rod, enough to electroplate small objects. While it remains uncertain whether the device was ever used in this way, the results suggest that ancient peoples may have had some awareness of galvanic reactions, a notion that challenges conventional understanding of technological development. In an era of clay tablets and ziggurats, such knowledge defied expectation. Mesopotamian society is celebrated for its early writing systems, monumental architecture, and mathematical innovations, but the use of electricity is nowhere in the historical record. The presence of the Baghdad battery, if truly functional, hints at experiments or applications lost to time, a technological footnote erased from the annals of history. Scholars offered explanations that range from the practical to the fantastical. Some argued the cylinders were simply storage vessels for sacred scrolls or papyrus, with the metal components serving only symbolic purposes. Others suggested they were used in rituals, or perhaps as rudimentary electroplating tools to coat objects with gold or silver. Yet no theory fully accounted for the precision of the construction, the placement of metal, or the consistency observed across multiple examples. Across decades, the Baghdad battery inspired whispers of lost technology. Writers, conspiracy theorists, and amateur historians speculated on the possibility of an advanced ancient civilization whose scientific secrets had been buried alongside their empires. The artifact became a symbol not just of mystery, but of human imagination, prompting debate that stretched from academic journals to television documentaries. Its quiet allure persists, a testament to our fascination with what might have been. Today the cylinder rests behind glass, its secrets locked in silence. Fragile and corroded, it sits in a Baghdad museum, occasionally examined by researchers, yet still resisting definitive answers. Photographs, measurements, and lab reconstructions offer only glimpses, leaving the true purpose tantalizingly out of reach. Visitors stare at the small artifact, drawn by the sense that it might have once hummed with a current, an echo of ingenuity lost to time. We may have glimpsed only the shadow of knowledge long erased. Every experiment, every theory, every attempt to reconcile the artifact with historical understanding reminds us of the limits of what we can know. The Baghdad battery is not merely an object, it is a question suspended across centuries, challenging assumptions and inviting speculation. The hum of a current that might never have flowed still echoes across millennia, unheard but not forgotten. Hidden chambers of Giza, Egypt. Silent corridors stretch beyond what maps can reveal, holding mysteries the world has yet to touch. The Great Pyramid, long admired for its monumental scale and precise construction, contains voids and passages that continue to defy explanation. These hidden spaces are not marked on any ancient record, nor hinted at in historical accounts. They exist quietly, beneath layers of limestone and time, as though the builders intended them to remain unseen. The very idea of an undiscovered chamber within a structure so extensively studied challenges assumptions about what humanity knows and what it might never uncover. Cosmic particles tracing invisible paths have illuminated gaps once hidden from human eyes. In recent years, physicists have employed muon tomography, a technique that tracks subatomic particles passing through solid matter to scan the pyramid's interior. These scans revealed anomalies, voids and cavities that do not correspond to any known chamber. The largest, stretching hundreds of feet, lies above the Grand Gallery, yet its shape, purpose and content remain a mystery. The discovery sparked renewed debate, suggesting that even the most studied monuments may conceal secrets beyond our imagination. The chambers known to generations tell only part of the pyramid's story. Visitors see the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, and the Grand Gallery, marveling at their precise dimensions and flawless construction. Each space conveys ritual and engineering expertise, yet they occupy only a fraction of the pyramid's interior, Beyond these familiar rooms, hidden voids suggest that much more lies beneath the surface, untouched and unrecorded. The contrast between what is known and what remains invisible emphasizes the magnitude of the enigma. Ideas about what might lie behind sealed walls range from sacred halls to repositories of forgotten lore. Some researchers speculate that hidden chambers were meant to store treasures or royal artifacts protected from tomb robbers by centuries of stone. Others propose ceremonial halls designed for rituals now lost to history, or secret libraries containing knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, or theology. Theories vary widely, yet each carries a sense of unease. These voids are deliberate, yet their purpose is entirely opaque to the modern eye. Hints of concealed spaces appear not only in stone but in the whispers of ancient scribes. Some scholars point to obscure references in hieroglyphic inscriptions and papyri that may allude to chambers not yet discovered. While none explicitly describe hidden rooms within the Great Pyramid, the texts often speak of places of eternal knowledge, or vaults unseen by mortal eyes, language that resonates with modern findings. Local legends passed down through generations describe secret doors and concealed corridors, suggesting that even ancient Egyptians may have acknowledged the existence of spaces meant to remain unknown. Though fragmentary and ambiguous, these accounts add layers of intrigue to the physical evidence, hinting at the builders' intentions to hide more than mere burial chambers. Archaeologists of the past probed with rods, mirrors and hope, chasing shadows within stone. From early explorers in the 19th century to 20th century investigators, attempts to locate hidden spaces often failed or yielded inconclusive results. Some reported faint echoes, shifts in airflow, or unexpected temperature changes, hinting at cavities unseen. These early efforts demonstrate the persistence of curiosity, yet they also highlight how the pyramid can guard its secrets with silent obstinacy. Some voids may have been designed with intent, aligning with stars or echoing ancient knowledge. Egyptologists and archaeoastronomers suggest that the pyramid's internal architecture was informed by astronomical phenomena, religious symbolism, and practical considerations. Hidden chambers could have played a role in rituals tied to celestial events or the pharaoh's journey into the afterlife. The precision of their construction, aligned with corridors and galleries, indicates knowledge that combined engineering prowess with spiritual or symbolic purpose. The precision of the pyramid's hidden spaces rivals its visible architecture. Recent engineering analyses suggest that the undiscovered voids could serve structural purposes, distributing the immense weight of millions of limestone blocks to prevent collapse. Yet the calculations also reveal extraordinary precision. The walls, angles, and spacing of voids appear deliberately measured rather than accidental. This duality, functional engineering intertwined with deliberate secrecy, raises the possibility that the chambers were designed both for practical stability and as repositories of ceremonial or astronomical significance. Even the alignment of these voids may encode knowledge, preserving geometric or cosmological principles long before the advent of modern measurement tools. Not every expert believes these spaces serve more than structural or symbolic purposes. Skeptics argue that voids could result from construction methods or the settling of the limestone blocks. They caution against attributing intentional meaning where none existed, emphasizing that speculation often eclipses evidence. Yet even the most conservative analysis acknowledges an enduring mystery. The largest voids are positioned in ways that invite interpretation, and their sheer scale demands explanation. New technologies allow glimpses that previous generations could only imagine. Drones, robotic probes, and advanced imaging methods continue to reveal minute details of the pyramid's interior. Three-dimensional reconstructions suggest hidden corridors and chambers may branch in unexpected directions, while acoustic studies detect anomalies in sound reflection patterns. Each discovery raises more questions than it answers, yet the effort itself underscores humanity's unrelenting fascination with what lies just out of reach. Within these silent voids echoes a civilization's ambition, leaving questions heavier than the stone itself. The Great Pyramid was never merely a tomb, it is a testament to the vision, labour, and intellect of an ancient people whose motivations remain partially obscured. Hidden chambers, whether functional, symbolic, or ceremonial, serve as reminders that even the most documented monuments can hold layers of mystery. They speak to human ingenuity, secrecy, and the enduring power of what is deliberately concealed. Even after millennia, the pyramid holds fast to its mysteries, leaving only darkness where answers might have been. Codex Gigas, Czech Republic. No ordinary book could fill a room and still feel alive with secrets. Its massive pages, bound in worn leather, dwarf most human hands, and yet each leaf carries a precise, almost obsessive script that seems to pulse with the weight of centuries. Scholars and visitors alike pause before it, sensing that this is not merely a manuscript, but a relic both monumental and unnerving. Its size alone commands attention, but it is the combination of content, legend, and meticulous craftsmanship that imbues the Codex Gigas with a reputation far beyond any ordinary text. According to legend, a scribe worked in silence, aided by forces unseen, to complete what should have taken decades. Stories claim that in the early 13th century, a monk condemned to death for a grievous sin promised to compile the largest manuscript ever written in a single night. When he realized the task was impossible, the devil himself purportedly offered assistance in exchange for the monk's soul. Whether fact or folklore, this tale set the stage for the Codex Gigas' dark reputation, intertwining devotion, desperation, and the supernatural in a narrative that has survived as long as the book itself. Within its pages are prayers and histories, spells and sins, woven together in meticulous script. The manuscript contains the entire Old and New Testaments, chronicles of local history, medical formulas and magical formulas, alongside one of the most infamous images in the history of books, a full-page illustration of the devil, stark and haunting in its detail. Each page presents a juxtaposition of sacred and forbidden, practical and occult, forming a compendium that challenges assumptions about what a single human hand could produce, and what knowledge was considered too dangerous or taboo for ordinary circulation. Hints of concealed spaces appear not only in stone but in the whispers of ancient scribes. Some scholars have noted cryptic notations and annotations that suggest additional knowledge or commentary, hidden within the margins and margins of margins. Local lore speaks of monks who disappeared after handling the manuscript, or who fell ill in mysterious ways, further feeding its ominous reputation. While few of these accounts can be verified, they form a consistent echo across centuries, implying that even those who created the Codex understood it contained powers or truths best left untouched. Through centuries of turmoil, the manuscript passed from monastery to monarch to modern custodian. It survived fires, wars, and religious upheaval, each transfer adding a layer to its mystique. Originally housed at the Benedictine monastery of Podlazite, it moved through Bohemian abbeys and survived the dissolution of monasteries under imperial edicts, finally arriving at the National Library in Prague. Each stage of its journey added to the aura of forbidden allure, as if the manuscript's fate were bound to human curiosity and historical chaos alike. Stories whisper that misfortune followed those who dared to handle it carelessly. Accounts from the early custodians describe inexplicable illnesses, sudden deaths, or strange misfortunes befalling those who lingered too long over its pages. These tales, though anecdotal, contributed to the Codex's enduring nickname, the Devil's Bible. The combination of awe-inspiring artistry and eerie legend made the book an object of reverence, fear, and fascination, creating a tension between scholarly study and superstition that persists to this day. Experts marvel at the precision, each stroke defying the patience and lifespan of a single monk. Scientific examinations of the ink, parchment, and calligraphy indicate that the manuscript could indeed have been written by one hand, though the scale of labour is almost inconceivable. Every letter, every illustration, is executed with remarkable consistency, suggesting obsessive care and perhaps the influence of highly ritualised practice. The craftsmanship alone challenges modern understanding, as it bridges devotion, discipline, and the allure of forbidden knowledge in a way that seems almost supernatural. Recent forensic studies of the manuscript reveal layers of mystery beneath the ink itself. Spectroscopic analysis of the ink and parchment indicates that the materials may have originated from diverse regions, suggesting access to rare resources and trade networks previously unrecognized in 13th century Bohemia. Microscopic examination shows subtle corrections, hidden symbols, and variations in script that imply intentional concealment or encoding of information, as if the scribe embedded additional messages for those capable of interpreting them. These findings have sparked debate among historians and cryptographers alike, as they suggest the Codex Gigas may contain hidden knowledge or coded messages beyond its visible text, reinforcing its reputation as a book of forbidden secrets. The intention behind the manuscript remains as enigmatic as its contents. Was it a show of religious devotion, a repository of knowledge, or a warning to those who might overreach in their curiosity? Each page, each careful stroke, invites interpretation, yet provides no definitive answers. Scholars debate its purpose, and for every logical explanation, the manuscript's sheer size and scope provoke wonder, suspicion, and speculation. Its enigma lies not just in what it contains, but in the audacity of its creation and the shadows it casts over those who study it. Over the centuries, curiosity transformed reverence into legend, and legend into obsession. The Codex Gigas has inspired countless reproductions, scholarly studies, and documentaries. It has appeared in popular culture as the ultimate symbol of forbidden knowledge, a reminder of human ambition's extremes and the darker aspects of faith and scholarship. Each generation encounters the manuscript anew, drawn by its physical presence, its history, and the tantalizing whispers of secrets embedded within the ink. In its shadow, one glimpses the extremes of devotion and the temptation of secrecy. The Codex Gigas embodies the human desire to capture all knowledge, to merge sacred and profane, to leave a record that might outlast time itself. Scholars, historians, and the merely curious stand before it and sense that it is more than paper and ink, that it is a monument to obsession, fear, and genius intertwined. It is at once a historical artifact and a riddle, demanding study while defying full comprehension. Even closed, the Codex Gigas watches, its secrets waiting for the bold or foolish enough to turn its pages. Crystal skulls, Mesoamerica. They seem almost alive, staring with an impossible clarity that unnerves the observer. Each skull, carved from flawless quartz, catches and refracts light in ways that give the impression of subtle movement, as if the stones themselves are aware of those who examine them. Their surfaces are polished to perfection, yet the symmetry and anatomical accuracy defy expectations for the tools and techniques thought to have been available centuries ago. Holding one evokes a disquieting mixture of awe and apprehension, a sensation that these objects are more than mere carvings. They are silent witnesses to knowledge long concealed. According to local accounts, these skulls have surfaced where few had expected to find them. Many of the earliest examples were discovered in the jungles of Central America, unearthed from caves or tombs linked to pre-Columbian civilizations. Indigenous oral traditions hint at the existence of sacred objects meant to preserve ancestral wisdom or protect communities, and some suggest that the crystal skulls were considered conduits to the spiritual realm. These narratives, though fragmentary and inconsistent, provide a haunting backdrop to the physical evidence, suggesting a link between artistry, ritual, and secrecy. Archaeological claims suggest that some skulls may predate European contact, though evidence remains fiercely contested. Proponents argue that certain skulls were found in contexts suggesting Mesoamerican ritual use, possibly belonging to Maya or Aztec lineages. Carbon dating of surrounding artifacts sometimes aligns with these claims, yet the absence of definitive excavation records leaves the skull's true age uncertain. This tension between material evidence and the documented record reinforces the skull's reputation as artifacts whose histories are deliberately obscured or lost, leaving only tantalizing fragments for modern investigation. Each skull is carved with such precision that modern tools would struggle to replicate it. Minute details, cranial sutures, dental structure, and even subtle asymmetries indicate a level of craftsmanship that seems improbable for the era of their purported origin. Some skulls measure nearly a foot in length, yet the artisans achieved uniformity across multiple specimens, a feat that has led researchers to question whether ancient civilizations possessed techniques or knowledge now lost. The combination of beauty, realism, and scale transforms the skulls from curiosities into enduring enigmas. Scientific scrutiny has revealed contradictions that only deepen the enigma. In the 20th century, investigations showed that some skulls were likely modern fabrications, crafted to satisfy collectors or exploit myths. Yet other skulls have resisted definitive dating, and isotopic analysis sometimes yields results inconsistent with known quarrying and polishing methods. The disparity between verified forgeries and artifacts that remain inexplicable feeds the ongoing debate. Are these objects relics of forgotten civilizations, misinterpretations of later craftsmanship, or deliberate deceptions designed to manipulate belief? Stories of strange abilities and supernatural influence surround some of the skulls. Legends speak of healing powers, prophetic visions, and psychic resonance when the skulls are held or placed in ceremonial arrangements. While modern science rejects claims of magical effect, the persistence of these tales underscores the psychological and cultural magnetism of the objects. Collectors and shamans alike have treated the skulls as vessels of knowledge, suggesting that their allure extends far beyond the aesthetic or archaeological. In ceremonial contexts, some skulls appear to have held symbolic or ritual significance beyond their physical form. Anthropologists note that arrangements of the skulls, as described in colonial accounts, align with celestial or calendrical markers, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of astronomy or cosmology. Legends claim that shamans used them as focal points during rites, interpreting the reflections and refractions of light to receive visions or guidance. Whether these claims are factual or embellished, they demonstrate the deep integration of the skulls into cultural imagination, illustrating how objects can acquire layers of meaning that outlive their original creators. Over the decades, the skulls have journeyed from hidden caves to the world stage. Museums, private collections, and travelling exhibitions have made these artifacts accessible to millions, yet each display seems to amplify rather than diminish their mystique. High-profile appearances in documentaries and popular media have cemented their status as symbols of mystery and the unknown, feeding a cycle in which public fascination encourages both veneration and scrutiny. The skulls, silent and polished, remain as enigmatic as the legends that accompany them. Even experts find themselves caught between doubt and wonder. Archaeologists acknowledge the improbable craftsmanship and intricate detail, while skeptics point to stylistic inconsistencies and modern tool marks in certain specimens. This tension mirrors the duality of the skulls themselves, tangible, measurable objects whose origin and purpose may forever elude definitive explanation. The interplay of evidence and legend ensures that the skulls occupy a liminal space between fact and folklore, science and superstition. Recent analyses have probed the quartz with methods that would astonish the ancients. Advanced imaging, laser scanning, and microscopic spectroscopy reveal subtle grooves, micropolishes, and internal fractures that may carry information about their creation, handling, or even geographic origin. Some researchers have proposed that these details encode patterns or messages, though no universally accepted interpretation has emerged. The skulls, in their clarity and opacity, challenge observers to decipher meaning that may be intentionally obscured. Across continents and generations, the skulls have become symbols of forbidden knowledge. Their appearances in films, literature, and New Age philosophy have amplified both reverence and skepticism, transforming them from archaeological curiosities into cultural icons. For some, they represent lost civilizations and ancient wisdom. For others, they are cautionary tales about the seduction of mystery and the human desire to uncover secrets not meant for comprehension. The collective fascination ensures that the skulls remain active participants in the modern imagination, as much a cultural phenomenon as an artifact of the past. And though hands have turned their polished faces, the skulls may hold their secrets forever beyond our reach. Mount Baigong Pipes, China. Rising from the Crimson Cliffs, the pipes defy the logic of both nature and history. Dozens of hollow tubes emerge from the mountainside at precise angles, some stretching tens of meters, their ends jagged yet oddly uniform. The formations glisten with a metallic hue, contrasting sharply against the weathered rock, as though the mountain itself had exhaled an impossible artifact. Observers are struck not only by their presence but by the unsettling sense that these structures were never meant to be discovered, as if hidden intentionally or shaped by forces beyond ordinary comprehension. It was during routine geological surveys that scientists first stumbled upon them in the 1970s, while mapping the remote region of Mount Baigong in China's Qinghai province. The team initially assumed the pipes were natural formations, hollowed channels carved by ancient water flows or mineral deposits, but closer examination soon challenged that assumption. The sheer regularity of the tubes, the angles at which they intersected, and the consistent diameter across multiple specimens suggested design rather than chance. Local villagers had long whispered of oddities in the cliffs, yet their stories seemed folkloric until the surveyors documented them with photographs and sketches. Each pipe stretches in perfect alignment, its interior smooth and uniform. Many measure several inches in diameter and are embedded deep within sediment layers that geologists have dated to tens of thousands of years. Some pipes are rusted and brittle, while others retain a glossy, almost manufactured surface. Their construction appears sophisticated, and the materials are unusually resistant to corrosion, baffling experts who struggle to reconcile these properties with the known capabilities of ancient civilizations in the region. The pipe's interiors often show traces of calcification, hinting at long-term exposure to water, yet the pattern of deposits suggests a controlled flow rather than random mineral accumulation. Geologists attempted to place the pipes in time, only to find conflicting evidence. Sediment analysis suggests an age of at least 150,000 years for the surrounding rock, far predating any known human technological activity. Yet some pipe materials contain iron and silicon compounds arranged in ways that mimic industrial processing. This paradox, ancient geological layers housing objects that appear artificially engineered, has fueled decades of debate, leaving researchers uncertain whether to classify the pipes as natural anomalies, ancient engineering feats, or something else entirely. The results of chemical testing have revealed nothing but further questions, deepening the mystery of the pipes. Tests reveal an unusual combination of iron, silicon, and traces of other metals arranged in ways that resemble smelting or alloying, yet the age of the surrounding rock makes any known metallurgical explanation impossible. Some sections appear to have been deliberately annealed or hardened, while others show patterns suggestive of repeated heating or manipulation. These findings have led a few researchers to speculate that the pipes may represent a form of proto-technology, lost science that predates human civilization as we understand it. The more scientists probe the composition, the less conventional explanation seems sufficient, leaving the pipes poised between natural wonder and manufactured artifact. Whispers among villagers speak of purposes lost to memory. Some claim the pipes were channels for sacred rituals, conduits to the underworld, or remnants of a civilization swallowed by time. Others suggest that the formations are evidence of contact with beings beyond human experience. While such tales are anecdotal, they persist across generations, hinting at an unbroken, if enigmatic, recognition that the pipes hold significance beyond the physical. In a land rich with history yet sparsely documented, these stories add a human dimension to a mystery that might otherwise remain purely geological. Some have argued that nature alone sculpted these formations. Explanations range from volcanic activity and mineral-rich water erosion to the slow shifting of tectonic plates, yet no model convincingly reproduces the pipe's geometry or uniformity. Critics point to the lack of tool marks and the irregular spacing of certain sections as evidence of natural formation. But these arguments leave unresolved the extraordinary precision found in other areas. Every hypothesis seems to solve one problem while deepening another, a tension that keeps scientists returning to the cliffs with both skepticism and wonder. Curiosity from far beyond the region has converged on the mountains. Researchers, journalists, and amateur explorers have travelled to Mount Baigong, photographing, measuring, and speculating. Their reports have circulated internationally, sparking debates that range from academic journals to fringe forums. Each expedition adds a layer of documentation, yet no consensus has emerged, and the pipes remain as elusive as they are arresting. The allure lies not only in what the formations are, but in what they suggest. The tantalizing possibility of knowledge, or technology, lost to time. Closer inspection reveals anomalies that resist easy classification. Some interiors display uniform grooves reminiscent of drilling, while external surfaces bear pitting inconsistent with natural erosion. The spatial arrangement hints at an intentional pattern, a network rather than a scattered occurrence. Attempts to replicate the structures with known ancient techniques have failed, suggesting either a lost method or an entirely unexplained phenomenon. Whether the pipes were carved, formed, or grown, they challenge our understanding of history and geology alike. Even decades of study have not yielded certainty. Scholars debate, enthusiasts theorize, and locals continue to recount their tales, but the pipes themselves remain mute. They endure through centuries of wind and erosion, silent witnesses to a past that refuses to be reconciled with the present. The more the world scrutinizes them, the more they seem to guard their secrets, as if Mount Baigong itself exercises quiet dominion over what knowledge may emerge. A truth predating human memory lies within the pipes of Mount Baigong, revealed only to those daring or desperate enough to grasp it. Nan Madol, Micronesia. Across the still waters, Nan Madol rises like a memory carved in basalt. Dozens of artificial islets form a labyrinth of canals, walls and platforms, each built from massive stones, whose edges are too precise to be natural. At dawn, mist drifts between the structures, giving the impression that the city breathes, that it has lain waiting for centuries for eyes willing to see its secrets. Observers feel a strange dislocation. The place is human-made yet alien, ancient yet impossibly sophisticated, as if a vanished intelligence once mastered techniques lost to time. When Western researchers first stepped onto the islands, they found more than they expected. Archaeologists, sailors, and anthropologists marveled at the sheer scale and precision of the city, realizing that the 92 small islands were not randomly formed but meticulously arranged. Each discovery seemed to raise more questions than it answered. How had the builders moved basalt stones weighing several tons? How had they constructed such durable walls over a soft lagoon bed? Every observation deepened the sense that Nan Madol belonged not merely to history, but to the realm of the mysterious. The islands are linked by canals that cut through the lagoon with precise geometry, forming a navigable network that mirrors the arrangement of streets in a modern city. Basalt columns line the edges of platforms, their interlocking placement defying conventional engineering methods. Within these platforms, foundations and stone chambers suggest administrative, residential, and ceremonial purposes. The city is both orderly and enigmatic, a maze of human ambition suspended above water, leaving those who study it pondering the labour and knowledge required to achieve such a feat without metal tools or draft animals. Some see in the islets an echo of the skies, a deliberate alignment with celestial design. Studies suggest that certain clusters of platforms correspond to solstices and equinoxes, hinting that the city may have incorporated astronomical knowledge into its design. Observers speculate that the Sodalur rulers used these alignments for ceremonial purposes or to mark seasonal cycles critical for agriculture and navigation. Whether this planning was symbolic, practical, or both remains unclear, but the alignment adds a new layer to the mystery. Nan Madol was not only engineered with astonishing precision on the ground, but may have also been constructed to mirror the heavens above, blending cosmology with architecture in ways that continue to elude understanding. How these enormous stones were transported and set remains a puzzle. Some theorists suggest rafts, rollers, or manpower, yet experiments and simulations struggle to reproduce the feat with the resources likely available to the builders. Others propose that now forgotten technologies or engineering methods may have been employed, leaving no trace outside the structures themselves. Every wall, every platform, hints at a civilization capable of feats we still cannot fully explain, a society whose knowledge vanished with the collapse of its rulers. Ancient stories speak of rulers with strength and knowledge beyond ordinary men. Local lore describes the Sodalur dynasty as possessing both authority and mystical power, overseeing Nan Madol as a city sacred to the heavens and the ocean. Legends claim that they controlled tides, commanded labour with supernatural influence, and governed a society whose intricacies rival modern urban planning. Though the veracity of these tales is impossible to confirm, they provide a cultural lens through which the city's existence begins to feel not only plausible but profoundly human in its ambition and hubris. Some scholars contend that the city's construction can be explained by ingenuity and manpower alone. They argue that coastal engineering, careful quarrying, and social organisation could have produced the basalt walls and canals without recourse to legend. Experiments in moving stone by raft or lever demonstrate that, while difficult, large-scale construction is not entirely outside the capabilities of the era. Yet even proponents of this theory admit that the lack of written records, tools, or accounts from the period leaves a significant gap in understanding how a city of such scale could be realised in an isolated lagoon environment. Recent surveys have revealed layers of settlement that hint at a complex society. Subsurface scans suggest foundations and buried chambers yet to be excavated, while fragments of pottery and shell artifacts indicate trade networks and ceremonial practices. Each new piece of evidence reinforces the paradox of Nan Madol. a city that is at once tangible and ghostly, fully present in the physical world yet eluding complete comprehension. The more researchers uncover, the more the city seems to insist on holding some secrets apart from human observation. Over centuries, the rising tide and relentless weather have concealed much of the original design. Many canals are now shallow, filled with silt or overgrown with mangroves. Some walls lean precariously, and stone platforms crumble into the lagoon, yet even in decay, the engineering precision is apparent. The passage of time has not erased the city's message. Rather, it has veiled it in layers of mystery, challenging modern observers to reconstruct both its physical form and the intentions of its builders. Even today, the islands challenge what we believe is possible in pre-modern construction. Scholars, explorers, and enthusiasts approach Nan Madol with awe, measuring, mapping, and theorizing, yet the city continues to resist full understanding. Its walls, canals, and chambers speak across centuries, offering glimpses of order and ambition, while withholding the key to the civilization that raised them. Every visit, every study, leaves a sense of humility, reminding humanity that some achievements surpass even our contemporary comprehension. As the lagoon sways beneath the moonlight, the stones of Nan Madol murmur of a civilization that shaped both land and legend, holding its secrets beneath the tide for anyone brave enough to listen. Nampa Figurine, Idaho, USA. Along the winding banks of the Snake River, beneath Idaho's rolling plains, unfolds a story almost too strange to believe. In 1889, workers digging a well near Nampa stumbled upon a small, carefully carved figurine buried nearly 320 feet below the surface. Unlike ordinary artifacts, this object seemed impossibly old, lodged in deposits assigned to the Pliocene epoch, a time when modern humans were thought not yet to exist in North America. The discovery ignited fleeting excitement, only to be swallowed by doubt, suppression, and the weight of conventional chronologies that left little room for such an anomaly. The figurine itself was diminutive, barely an inch in height, fashioned from clay that bore traces of firing and carved with a level of precision that suggested deliberate design rather than chance. Its posture, ambiguous and almost humanoid, evoked questions that researchers were hesitant to voice aloud. The historical context of the Nampa figurine deepens the mystery. In the late 19th century, the United States was rife with geological surveys and burgeoning archaeological interest. The well diggers, unaware of the epochal implications, passed the artifact to local collectors and eventually to academic hands. Initial examinations noted its fine craftsmanship, the contours of the figure's head, and what appeared to be rudimentary markings along its body. At first, some scholars entertained the idea that the figurine might be a relic of a much later civilization that had somehow penetrated older sediment layers. Yet, further analysis of the surrounding clay and the depth at which it was found suggested a far earlier origin, one that collided violently with the accepted timeline of human habitation. The Pliocene deposits in the Snake River Valley were tens of millions of years old, a time when mammals roamed, but anatomically modern humans were nowhere near existence in the region. The figurine's material composition added another layer to the puzzle. Tests on the fired clay confirmed that it had undergone a form of high-temperature processing, a method presumed to require knowledge of controlled combustion, long before humanity had mastered such techniques. This suggested either an unrecorded technological capability or, more unsettlingly, a presence of intelligent beings at a time considered impossible. The craftsmanship, though modest in scale, implied intent and purpose. Unlike natural concretion or accidental shaping, every curve and indentation seemed deliberate. Even skeptics acknowledged that the object bore marks of human, or near-human, design. Yet any suggestion that it might rewrite the timeline of North American prehistory quickly faced resistance. Academic journals expressed hesitation, funding sources evaporated, and the figurine itself became an object largely discussed in hushed whispers rather than published studies. Studied through fragments of evidence, the figurine's history continues to elude those who seek to trace it. Records from the initial excavation indicate that it was transported to Boise for inspection and later made its way into private hands. Photographs and sketches from the period reveal a small but detailed figure, yet the artifact itself vanished from public view. Some accounts suggest that its disappearance was deliberate, motivated by a desire to avoid the intellectual upheaval that such an object might provoke. scholars and collectors spoke in muted tones of a piece that challenged fundamental assumptions about human history, one that could undermine entire theories of migration, evolution, and cultural development. The idea that humans, or human-like beings, might have existed in North America millions of years before the accepted timeline was, for many, too dangerous to entertain publicly. Beyond its physical characteristics, the figurine embodies a series of enigmas tied to context and circumstance. The Nampa region itself had long been inhabited by Native American tribes, but there is no known oral history or mythology that corresponds to a small, humanoid figure buried deep in Pliocene sediments. Its presence suggests either a lost civilization, previously unknown, or the possibility of an ancient migration route erased by time. The combination of geological and archaeological evidence, however fragmentary, has led a small number of researchers to propose radical hypotheses. Some suggest that the figurine could be a remnant of a population entirely unrecognized in the fossil record, one that possessed knowledge and skills far beyond what science has yet acknowledged. Others entertain more controversial ideas, speculating on the potential involvement of beings not recorded in conventional history. The suppression of the Nampa figurine adds a human dimension to the mystery. Contemporary letters and newspaper reports hint that the discovery provoked unease among both local authorities and prominent scientists. A clear narrative emerges of caution, perhaps fear, and a desire to maintain the established order of prehistory. While some reports were published, they were often vague, omitting critical details about the depth of the find or the stratigraphic context. By the early 20th century, the figurine had disappeared from both public collections and academic discourse, leaving only fragments of evidence and a trail of second-hand accounts. Researchers who attempted to revisit the site decades later were met with bureaucratic obstacles, suggesting that certain layers of the Nampa deposits had been restricted, if not entirely off-limits. Whether these actions were motivated by genuine concern for preservation or by fear of historical upheaval remains a question that echoes through the decades. Modern perspectives on the Nampa figurine continue to wrestle with its implications. Advances in geochronology and sedimentology have reaffirmed that the deposits in which it was found are extraordinarily ancient, yet mainstream archaeology largely sidesteps the subject, relegating it to the margins of anomalous finds. Independent researchers, often dismissed as fringe, continue to examine photographs, sketches, and written records, seeking patterns or clues that might corroborate the object's authenticity. Some point to similarities with other inexplicable artifacts found across North America and Eurasia, noting a faint but recurring thread of human-like creation in context that should preclude it. The figurine's disappearance only heightens its allure, transforming it into a symbol of hidden knowledge and a challenge to the orthodoxy of human history. The Nampa figurine remains an enigma because it exists at the intersection of evidence and impossibility. Its size belies the magnitude of its implications, and its quiet disappearance from view has only fueled speculation. It is a relic that, in its silence, questions the very assumptions upon which archaeology has built its timelines. Some scholars whisper of records kept away from the public, of objects stored in private collections or forgotten basements, and of truths too destabilizing to be widely acknowledged. Others wonder if the figurine's original context, lost to time and suppression, might one day be recovered, revealing secrets that could force humanity to reconsider its own origins. A message from a seemingly impossible time rests with the figurine, hidden beneath sediment and secrecy, challenging all who attempt to uncover it. Tartaria tablets, Romania. Long before cities rose along the Tigris and Euphrates, long before clay tokens evolved into the earliest known systems of writing, the people of southeastern Europe were quietly shaping the foundation of human communication in ways modern historians can barely trace. Nestled along the Danube River, the region that is now Romania harboured settlements that thrived on agriculture, ritual and trade. It was among these Neolithic communities that a discovery would one day challenge assumptions about when and where humans first wrote. The very notion that humans could record information, events, or belief systems on clay long before Mesopotamia achieved its celebrated innovations seemed inconceivable to scholars entrenched in traditional timelines. Yet the Tartaria tablets quietly held a counter-argument encoded in their fragile surfaces. In the quiet village of Tartaria, excavations in 1961 revealed a set of 3 small clay tablets, unearthed alongside a series of figurines and ritual objects within a Neolithic settlement dated to around 5500 BCE. Archaeologist Nikolai Vlasser, leading the dig, recognized the significance immediately, but also encountered immediate resistance from the wider scholarly community. The tablets were found in a funerary context, near burials that suggested ceremonial importance rather than mundane record-keeping. Their size was unassuming, each barely a few centimeters across, yet the markings inscribed upon them hinted at a deliberate attempt to communicate or codify ideas. From the very first sketches and photographs, the tablets presented a puzzle, symbols arranged in linear sequences, some repeating, others singular, none immediately translatable, and all seemingly predating the known birth of writing in Mesopotamia by nearly a millennium. The clay tablets, small and fragile, bore markings that remain enigmatic to this day. Some scholars liken them to proto-cuneiform, while others note parallels to symbols found in later Balkan and Anatolian cultures, suggesting a continuity of symbolic thought stretching across millennia. Each tablet carries a unique pattern, incisions made with careful pressure, often deep enough to survive millennia, yet shallow enough to suggest deliberate craftsmanship rather than accident. The symbols themselves are geometric and abstract, occasionally resembling stylized animals or ritual motifs, but any semantic meaning has eluded definitive interpretation. The tablet's survival is remarkable, preserved not by design but by circumstance, buried within protective layers of sediment that shielded them from erosion, flood, or human interference for over 7,000 years. Scholars, confronted with evidence that predated known writing, responded with skepticism, caution, and in some cases outright dismissal. The Tartaria tablets were mentioned only sparingly in early publications, often glossed over as curiosities rather than revolutionary artifacts. Some suggested they were ceremonial markings without linguistic content, or later additions mistakenly inserted into older layers. Yet carbon dating of associated materials consistently reinforced the Neolithic age of the site, leaving no easy explanation. Over time, references to the tablets receded into obscure journals and private correspondences, while the objects themselves were stored in national collections, accessible to only a select few. The suppression was subtle but effective, a quiet narrowing of attention that ensured mainstream archaeological narratives remained unchallenged. Surrounding the tablets, archaeologists uncovered a collection of figurines, pottery, and burnt offerings that hint at a complex ritual life within the settlement. The figurines, some carved from clay and others from bone, often depicted human or hybrid forms, suggesting a belief system that intertwined the corporeal with the spiritual. Pottery vessels bore incised patterns similar in style to the symbols on the tablets, raising the possibility that these markings were part of a broader symbolic language understood by the community. Burnt offerings, placed deliberately within pits or near burials, indicate ceremonies that may have accompanied the creation or use of the tablets. These associated artifacts provide a rare glimpse into the cognitive and spiritual world of the people who produced the symbols, offering clues that extend beyond the tablets themselves, and suggesting that the act of writing or symbol making was inseparable from ritual and social practice. When measured against Mesopotamia's earliest cuneiform, the implications of the Tartaria tablets are staggering. Mesopotamian records date to roughly 3,300 BCE, widely regarded as the birthplace of formal writing. Yet here, in a remote corner of Europe, symbols appear centuries earlier, hinting at a literacy or at least a system of symbolic record that predates the cradle of civilization. This raises profound questions. Had humans in southeastern Europe independently developed a written language? Were these symbols the product of a lost culture, sophisticated yet vanished, whose influence might have extended unnoticed across the continent? The tablets defy neat categorization, their presence at odds with established timelines, a subtle but persistent challenge to the linear narratives of human development. Some researchers have suggested that these symbols hint at a culture deeply engaged in ritual, astronomy, or early mathematics. The arrangement of marks, their repetition, and their association with ceremonial burials indicate that they were more than simple decoration. They were tools for encoding knowledge. Others have speculated on connections to esoteric traditions, the possibility of mnemonic devices, or an early attempt to map social, spiritual, or environmental systems. Yet the tablets offer no key, no Rosetta Stone to unlock their secrets. The deeper one probes, the more apparent it becomes that the Tartaria tablets are not merely archaeological artifacts, they're fragments of a language, a thought system, and a worldview almost entirely lost to history. The mystery is compounded by the broader context of Neolithic Europe. Across the Danube Valley, settlements show evidence of long-distance trade, intricate ceramics, and monumental structures, but few of these communities left records in writing. The Tartaria tablets stand out precisely because they hint at knowledge beyond subsistence and ritual. They suggest an awareness of recording, a conscious attempt to preserve or communicate ideas, yet the system they represent vanished almost as soon as it appeared. Were they an isolated experiment in literacy, or remnants of a widespread but unrecognized network of early human cognition? The questions remain unanswered, deliberately or incidentally, as the tablets themselves were quietly confined to archives far from public view. Into the shadows of prehistory, the tablets fade, leaving behind questions that will not rest, echoes of a Neolithic world where thought found form on clay before history knew it could. Sumerian king list, Iraq. Before the concept of recorded history existed, time itself seemed to bend around these rulers, stretching centuries into millennia and leaving ordinary human comprehension far behind. In the cradle of Mesopotamia, where rivers carried silt that nourished the earliest cities, scribes attempted to impose order on the chaos of memory and myth. They chronicled kings whose reigns eclipsed lifetimes, spanning eras that today's science would declare impossible. The king list is not merely a record, it is a bridge between the known and the imagined, a document that whispers of civilizations that may have measured time differently, and of rulers whose shadows linger longer than any physical monument. Clay tablets, painstakingly inscribed, captured the names and reigns of kings whose existence teetered between myth and reality. The tablets were discovered in the ruins of ancient Sumerian cities, including Nippur, Ur, and Kish, where archaeologists found fragments that together preserved a lineage of rulers stretching from the earliest foundations of civilization. Each tablet varies slightly, yet all follow a similar pattern: the enumeration of kings, their city, and the staggering lengths of their reigns. These scribes wrote with reeds pressed into wet clay, their strokes precise and deliberate, suggesting that the act of recording was as much ritual as it was historical. Every indentation carries intention, preserving a story that defies temporal logic yet demands acknowledgement. Excavations in Ur, Nippur, and Kish revealed fragments of the king list embedded in temple complexes, storehouses, and administrative archives, highlighting the significance attributed to these records by ancient Mesopotamians. The tablets were often found alongside economic accounts, ritual texts, and votive inscriptions, suggesting that the king's reigns were not merely remembered for legend, but also integrated into civic and religious structures. The physical placement of the tablets indicates deliberate preservation, as if the memory of these extraordinary rulers required protection from decay and loss. Even broken or fragmented tablets bear traces of careful copying, showing that scribes across generations sought to maintain continuity, despite political upheaval, conquests, and the shifting fortunes of city-states. These fragments serve as tangible links between myth, governance, and the enduring human effort to record a past that continually defies understanding. Alulim and Alangar, kings of a city lost to eternity, are said to have reigned for tens of thousands of years, their names echoing across tablets that survived floods, invasions, and millennia of decay. Following them, other rulers' lifespans gradually shortened, yet still stretched into centuries, each figure bridging the gap between myth and memory. These reigns intertwine with accounts of great cities, wars, and divine favour, creating a tapestry where the human and the supernatural coexist. As each name passes beneath the reader's gaze, a subtle unease emerges. These are not the lifespans of ordinary men, but records of entities whose time was measured differently, or perhaps remembered differently by those who inscribed them. Such durations contradict the known limits of human lifespan and the archaeological record, yet they persist in the text, refusing to be ignored. Excavations reveal no evidence of civilizations capable of sustaining rulers for tens of thousands of years, and yet the list survives, fragmentary but insistent. Historians and archaeologists have grappled with the paradox, attempting to reconcile the claims with carbon-dated structures, human evolution, and material culture. The contradiction itself has become a focus of fascination. The king list is at once a historical artifact and an enigma, compelling yet confounding, a document that refuses to fit neatly into conventional timelines. Some scholars propose that the extraordinary reigns encode astronomical cycles, symbolic numerology, or memories of a forgotten era. Others suggest that the text preserves oral traditions, exaggerating rulers' lifespans to lend authority or awe to the first city-states. A few fringe theories hint at the possibility of lost civilizations with knowledge now irretrievably vanished, civilizations whose methods of timekeeping or governance far outstripped what is known from surviving artifacts. The king list in this view becomes a cipher, each exaggerated number and elongated reign a clue pointing toward a past deliberately obscured or forgotten, waiting for interpretation beyond the boundaries of orthodox history. Fragments of the king list travelled across centuries, copied, concealed, and sometimes altered by generations of scribes. Temple libraries house these tablets alongside religious texts, economic records, and myths, preserving them under conditions both protective and selective. In some cases, political motives influenced which names were preserved or emphasized, adding another layer of complexity to understanding the original record. Even as empires rose and fell, portions of the list were hidden, forgotten, or dismissed, allowing only tantalizing glimpses of the full sequence to survive. Each fragment carries not only the story of its kings, but also the weight of human intention, what was chosen to endure and what was allowed to vanish. The list stretches imagination beyond reason, leaving historians and dreamers alike to wonder what truths lie beneath its lines. It forces the modern reader to confront the tension between recorded knowledge and legend, between the human desire for order and the incomprehensible scale of time that the Sumerian scribes attempted to capture. Each name, each numerical exaggeration, becomes a reminder that history is not only what we see, but also what is remembered, recorded, and sometimes concealed. The king list is a shadowy corridor through which the past whispers its contradictions, hinting at civilizations, rulers, and knowledge that may have existed just beyond the grasp of certainty. Through crumbling clay and impossible chronology, the Sumerian king list survives, a testament to the human desire to master time and a silent warning to those who believe the past can ever be neatly arranged. Saqqara bird, Egypt. Within the winding corridors of Saqqara's tombs, a small wooden object lay unnoticed for centuries, nestled among pottery, figurines, and ceremonial artifacts. It was during routine excavations in the early 20th century that Egyptologists first catalogued the piece, noting its unusual form but dismissing its significance as decorative. Yet even in its quiet obscurity, the object hinted at a sophistication and purpose that would not be fully appreciated for decades. The tombs of Saqqara, long revered as the necropolis of Memphis, were filled with reminders of mortality and divine favour, yet this unassuming figure seemed to suggest something beyond funerary symbolism, a whisper of ingenuity preserved in wood. The figure resembles a bird, yet its proportions and angles suggest precision far beyond mere artistic imitation. Its slender body, sharply tapered tail, and flat wings bear a resemblance to the contours of modern gliders, inviting observers to wonder whether the ancient craftsman had an understanding of flight mechanics that has since been forgotten. Every curve and notch appears deliberate, as though the carver intended not just to evoke nature, but to emulate its functionality. For decades, the bird was overlooked in catalogues, stored in museum basements. While researchers pursued more conventional artifacts, only a few scholars paused to examine its peculiar design in detail. Modern researchers, intrigued by its contours, discovered that the wings and tail could interact with airflow in ways that might allow gliding if released under the right conditions. Experimental replicas tested in wind tunnels revealed a delicate balance. Minor adjustments to angle and weight dramatically affected stability. These findings do not prove that the Saqqara bird ever flew, yet they suggest that the ancient Egyptians were capable of more than mere symbolic imitation. The possibility that this object represents an early understanding of aerodynamics has drawn both fascination and skepticism, as it challenges conventional ideas of technological development in the Old Kingdom. Under the microscope, the figurine's surface revealed tool marks and wear that hinted at repeated handling, implying careful experimentation rather than simple decoration. Tiny scratches along the wings and tail indicate that the bird may have been tested in controlled conditions, perhaps launched by hand to observe its balance or gliding potential. Traces of resin or adhesive on certain joints imply careful assembly, reinforcing the idea that the artifact was constructed with functional intent. Even the pigments show layering that could indicate multiple trials of painting and testing, rather than a single ceremonial application. These subtle details point toward a level of methodical observation and iteration rarely attributed to artifacts from this period, raising questions about the ingenuity and curiosity of its creators. Crafted from sycamore wood and meticulously carved, the artifact's weight and balance defy casual explanation. The grain of the wood follows the contours of the wings, and traces of pigments hint that the piece may have been painted, perhaps to mimic the plumage of a real bird. Tiny incisions and carefully smoothed surfaces suggest deliberate refinement, as if the carver experimented with form to achieve precise proportions. Even the smallest anomalies, once dismissed as flaws, now raise questions about intentionality. Was this object purely symbolic, or did the creator intend it to test principles that modern science is only now beginning to measure? Placed among funerary objects, the bird hints at a culture that revered both form and perhaps function. In the context of Egyptian burial practices, miniature models often symbolize the journey of the soul, the favor of the gods, or the eternal cycle of life. Yet this bird is unlike other models found in tombs. It seems to transcend symbolic representation, merging artistry with a practical curiosity. Its location, alongside ritual items and votive offerings, may indicate a dual purpose, a merging of spiritual and experimental thought, reflecting a worldview in which observation, imitation and belief were inseparable. Other small figurines from the Old Kingdom show varying levels of abstraction, yet few match the precise contours or implied function of the Saqqara bird. Comparisons with miniature boats, animals and ritual models suggest that Egyptians were capable of intricate scaling and careful measurement, but none display the same aerodynamic subtlety. Even within experimental modern reconstructions, attempts to replicate the bird's balance and wing angles highlight a sophistication that surpasses what was previously thought possible in miniature Egyptian models. These parallels underscore that the Saqqara bird was not an isolated curiosity, but may represent a deliberate exploration of flight, bridging the boundary between imagination and applied knowledge in a way that still baffles researchers today. Efforts to highlight its potential importance have been met with doubt, leaving it confined to obscure storage and buried in academic footnotes. Early reports that speculated about flight capability were dismissed as fanciful, while the bird's anomalous design was largely ignored in favour of more conventional interpretations of Egyptian art. As a result, the artifact has circulated mostly in photographs and occasional studies, its possible technological insight quietly obscured by the prevailing narrative that ancient civilizations lacked an advanced understanding of aerodynamics. Some theorists argue that the Saqqara bird represents a forgotten experiment, bridging imagination and engineering in ancient Egypt. It may have been a prototype, a ceremonial object that doubled as a test of form, or a teaching tool for artisans and priests. Others suggest it is symbolic, encoded with spiritual meaning that aligns with beliefs about flight, the soul, or the heavens. Regardless of interpretation, the artifact persists as a challenge to assumptions about what ancient humans could conceive and execute, a reminder that ingenuity can manifest in forms small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, yet complex enough to intrigue modern engineers. The tiny wings remain silent, yet they whisper of secrets lost to time, awaiting those willing to decipher their purpose. Cappadocia Tunnels, Turkey. Amid the jagged volcanic formations of Cappadocia, narrow openings beckon into the earth, hinting at hidden worlds carved millennia ago. The landscape above is otherworldly, with spires, cones and valleys sculpted by erosion, yet it conceals a vast labyrinth beneath the surface. These openings, often little more than shadowed gaps between tough pinnacles, invite the curious to imagine what lies below. A subterranean city stretching for kilometers, constructed with skill and forethought that continues to baffle modern eyes. The region's natural geology, soft enough to carve yet durable enough to withstand centuries, created the perfect canvas for human ingenuity, allowing entire communities to exist hidden from sight and history. Carved with precision into the soft tuff, the tunnels twist and descend, revealing chambers designed for both habitation and concealment. Passages vary from narrow crawlways to wide corridors capable of holding entire families, while rooms branch off at irregular intervals, forming a complex web of domestic, communal, and ritual spaces. Ventilation shafts pierce ceilings to allow airflow, wells tap into underground aquifers, and steep staircases link floors stacked one atop another, some reaching an estimated 8 levels deep. Every corridor bears subtle clues of construction: smoothened walls, intentional angles, and niches for lamps and storage. The meticulous planning required for such engineering demonstrates a level of sophistication and foresight that remains remarkable even today. Ventilation shafts, wells, and staircases demonstrate the ingenuity required to survive far below the surface. Kitchens, granaries, stables, and living quarters were carefully positioned to optimize efficiency and safety. Defensive strategies are evident in hidden trapdoors, narrow passageways that could be easily defended, and blocked exits designed to slow intruders. The inhabitants even devised escape routes and emergency chambers, suggesting that these cities were more than temporary shelters. They were self-contained ecosystems built to endure sieges, natural disasters, and extended periods of isolation. Archaeologists have noted that the layout reflects an advanced understanding of both human behavior and environmental control, a design that allowed life to flourish where sunlight barely penetrates. Hidden corridors extend into darkness, their depths unknown, holding mysteries untouched by modern hands. Excavations have only penetrated the upper and middle levels of the underground cities. Lower levels remain sealed by stone doors, filled-in passageways, or collapsed tunnels. Estimates suggest that some of these complexes could extend for more than 60 meters below the surface, a subterranean network that might contain hundreds of rooms yet undiscovered. These inaccessible chambers fuel speculation about what they contain: additional dwellings, storage of precious goods, hidden temples, or archives of forgotten knowledge. The uncertainty deepens the enigma, creating a tangible tension between what is known and what might lie beneath, just beyond reach. Teams navigating the labyrinth documented intricate carvings, frescoes, and domestic spaces, piecing together lives from shadows and stone. Early explorers often struggled with claustrophobic conditions, low light, and unstable tunnels, yet their notes reveal glimpses of daily existence, traces of food preparation, remnants of pottery, and worn staircases leading to rooms with mysterious purposes. Modern mapping technologies, including laser scanning and 3D reconstruction, have unveiled the precise geometric patterns in certain sections, suggesting intentionality in every angle and junction. Each new survey adds layers of understanding while simultaneously raising further questions about the full extent of the underground networks. Villagers whisper of ghostly figures and concealed treasures, tales that speak to the tunnel's enduring presence. Stories persist of children lost in passageways who emerge days later, of strange lights flickering in unexplored corridors, and of muffled sounds echoing through the stone. Some recount secret chambers appearing and disappearing overnight, or hidden staircases that vanish when approached. These accounts, passed down through generations, provide a cultural lens on the tunnels, reflecting a mixture of awe, fear, and reverence. Such folklore entwines with the physical reality, suggesting that the underground cities have long inspired imagination as much as they served a practical purpose. Microscopic examinations of wall surfaces and stone tools reveal traces of repeated maintenance, hinting at generations of inhabitants carefully adapting the tunnels over centuries. Marks on passageways indicate continual widening, smoothing, and reinforcement, suggesting that these structures were not built in a single effort but evolved to meet changing needs. Subtle variations in chamber dimensions hint at specialized functions, possibly including ceremonial spaces, storage for valuables, or strategic control points. These details reveal a dynamic, living underground culture, one in which human ingenuity and adaptability reached extraordinary levels far below the surface. Other archaeological finds from the region provide intriguing comparisons, yet none match the sheer scale and complexity of the Cappadocia networks. Small rock-cut dwellings on the surface demonstrate familiarity with the material and a tradition of subterranean construction, but only the underground cities reveal multi-level planning, defensive architecture, and coordinated ventilation systems. Even among these remarkable sites, subtle features, such as interconnecting tunnels between separate complexes, suggest a degree of regional cooperation and knowledge transfer that challenges assumptions about ancient civilizations in this area. Historians suggest that the underground cities may have served more than refuge, possibly as centers of secret knowledge, ritual practice, or early trade networks. Some theorists propose that these tunnels were used to hide sacred artifacts or preserve texts during periods of conflict, while others posit that the complexes functioned as communal hubs for religious ceremonies or clandestine gatherings. The intricate planning, construction and maintenance required for such massive subterranean settlements imply a sophisticated society capable of complex logistics, long-term strategy and shared cultural vision. The stones remain silent, yet the tunnels seem to promise that deeper truths lie waiting still beyond reach. Ubaid lizardmen, Iraq. Strange clay figures defy expectation, their shapes blurring the line between human and reptile. Unearthed in scattered Ubaid settlements of southern Mesopotamia, these small figurines immediately stood apart from the usual domestic and ritual artifacts. Unlike the stylized human depictions common to the period, they bear elongated limbs, textured surfaces resembling scales, and exaggerated eyes that seem almost aware. From the moment they appeared in excavation reports, they challenged archaeologists to reconcile their form with known cultural practices, leaving an unsettling impression that continues to ripple through modern scholarship. Elongated limbs, scaled textures, and oversized eyes give each figure a presence both familiar and unsettling. Their posture varies. Some are upright, hands folded across the chest, others crouch as if ready to spring, while a few display subtle asymmetries that resist simple categorization. The careful incisions used to render scales, claws, and facial features suggest a deliberate emphasis on liminality, the state of being between categories, neither fully human nor entirely animal. Clay composition, fired to a durable hardness, indicates they were crafted to endure, perhaps meant to outlast a generation, or to witness rituals long vanished into history. Placed near hearths or buried in refuse pits, they may have served as guardians, ritual participants, or symbolic warnings. Some figurines appear in proximity to miniature altars, or alongside small ceramic vessels suggesting ceremonial usage, while others were found in mundane spaces, hinting at a protective or talismanic function within households. Their placement seems intentional, yet enigmatic. Patterns repeat across sites, but never identically, as if each figurine were a unique token, created for a purpose that is now irretrievably lost. Such ambiguity fuels debate over whether they were objects of veneration, didactic devices, or even instruments in esoteric rites known only to select members of Ubaid society. Across Ubaid settlements, similar forms appear in clusters, suggesting a shared motif or cultural doctrine. Sites separated by tens of kilometers reveal striking parallels. Scaled limbs, bulbous eyes, and the distinctive hybrid stance recur with remarkable consistency. These repetitions indicate more than artistic coincidence. They reflect a conscious collective choice, hinting at shared myths, beliefs, or social codes. At the same time, minor variations, slightly altered posture, differing scale patterns, or subtle ornamentation suggest localized interpretations, as if each community encoded its own nuance within a common symbolic framework. Scholarly debates were swift, and dissenting voices were marginalized, while some figurines vanished from study entirely. Early reports describing their non-human symbolism were met with incredulity. Reviewers urged caution, and curators quietly removed examples from museum displays. Academic literature alternates between dismissing them as ritual effigies of unremarkable significance and speculating about hybridized spiritual beings, yet no consensus emerges. The disappearance of certain specimens from public view deepens the sense that these figurines may have threatened established interpretations of Ubaid culture, revealing an uncomfortable tension between evidence and orthodoxy. Comparable hybrid figures appear in distant lands, hinting at recurring human fascination with liminal, transformative beings. From Anatolia to the Indus Valley, and even in later Near Eastern mythologies, creatures that straddle human and animal traits appear with uncanny similarity. While definitive links are impossible to prove, these parallels provoke questions. Were such forms purely symbolic, or did they reflect a shared cultural motif, fascination with transformation, power, or guardianship? The Ubaid lizardmen occupy a particularly stark place within this broader pattern, their unsettling physicality forcing observers to confront interpretations that remain frustratingly elusive. Perhaps the figures were carried in ceremonies, invoked during planting or harvest, or used in secret rites beyond the eyes of the uninitiated. One can imagine a small figure held aloft in a dimly lit chamber, passed among initiates as part of an agricultural blessing or protective invocation. In another scenario, figurines might have been left at doorways or hearths to guard households against unseen forces, or incorporated into clandestine ceremonies commemorating seasonal or celestial events. Each hypothesis is built on fragments, spatial arrangements, wear patterns, and ethnographic parallels, yet none can conclusively reveal the intentions of the Ubaid artisans who crafted them with such care. Excavators found gaps in records, unmarked pits, and fragments hinting at chambers still untouched by modern hands. In some settlements, clusters of figurines were discovered without any corresponding structures, raising questions about where and how they were originally used. Soil disturbances and incomplete excavation reports suggest that much remains undiscovered. Even the figurines themselves resist easy interpretation. Missing limbs, eroded faces, and subtle modifications imply they may have been deliberately altered or ritually retired, adding layers of mystery that further frustrate attempts at reconstruction. Their staring faces endure across millennia, a silent challenge to all who attempt to understand their maker's intent. Each small figure retains the deliberate ambiguity that made it significant to the Ubaid people, preserving a liminal presence that is neither fully explained nor forgotten. They are a testament to human imagination reaching beyond familiar forms, hinting at beliefs, fears, and rituals that evade total comprehension. The Ubaid lizardmen do not reveal their secrets easily. Instead, they invite contemplation, speculation, and an unsettling awareness of what remains hidden in the shadowy spaces between human history and human imagination. They watch silently across millennia, their intentions preserved in clay, revealing nothing yet inviting endless questions. Oera Linda book, Netherlands. In a quiet Dutch archive, a folio surfaced, its pages thick with the dust of forgotten centuries. Scholars handling it noted immediately that it differed from any other manuscript they had encountered. The text, written in a flowing script, carried the weight of a civilization long removed from memory, and yet it seemed startlingly detailed in its recounting of laws, genealogies, and maritime ventures. From the moment it appeared in scholarly circles, whispers circulated that it challenged accepted European history, proposing a vision of society both advanced and enigmatic, lingering on the edges of credibility. Inked symbols curl across brittle parchment, precise yet alien, as though a language of lost minds had been preserved beyond the reach of contemporary understanding. The letters vary in form, sometimes angular, sometimes looping, yet always deliberate, suggesting a careful codification. Marginal notes appear sporadically, some added centuries later by uncertain hands, offering clues or perhaps deliberate distractions. The tactile quality of the parchment and the consistency of the ink hint at an intentional effort to make the work endure, while the peculiar shapes of certain characters evoke questions about their phonetic or symbolic meaning. Chronicles within recount people and rulers unknown to conventional history, their laws and customs interwoven with cryptic cosmologies. Entire sections describe dynasties that predate known historical records, along with social hierarchies, seasonal rituals, and sacred observances. Maritime expeditions stretch across seas that early European maps scarcely acknowledge, while descriptions of governance and societal structure suggest a level of sophistication that rivals or even surpasses more recognized contemporary civilizations. The text moves seamlessly between the mundane and the cosmic, blending daily life with mythic overtones, leaving readers uncertain where fact ends and legend begins. Early readers recoiled at its claims, while others quietly consigned it to obscurity, wary of destabilizing accepted narratives. Some dismissed it as a forgery, though few could convincingly explain its internal consistency or the linguistic patterns that aligned with ancient Frisian dialects. Librarians and curators, perhaps sensing the manuscript's potential to provoke ideological or nationalistic debates, limited access, keeping it out of general circulation. Academic journals barely referenced it, and those that did often couched descriptions in cautious, dismissive language, leaving the book as a shadowy artifact known only to a few. Stories of advanced seafaring civilizations and intricate legal codes suggested knowledge predating recognized European societies. The text's genealogical records implied generations of rulers extending far beyond documented history, and the sophistication of the maritime accounts hints at navigational understanding that scholars hesitate to acknowledge for the period. If taken seriously, these passages force reconsideration of timelines and capabilities, suggesting that societies capable of complex administration and exploration existed centuries before conventional history permits. The ideological ramifications were enough to silence or sideline early commentators, further shrouding the manuscript in secrecy. Researchers today scrutinize grammar, phrasing, and cultural references, searching for patterns that might authenticate or explain the text. Comparative linguistics has revealed tantalizing parallels with other Germanic and Frisian inscriptions, though definitive links remain elusive. Some passages contain poetic or mnemonic devices that may indicate oral transmission before inscription, while others resemble coded records, intentionally obscure. These ongoing studies illustrate both the manuscript's resilience and the complexity of interpreting a text intentionally crafted to endure, yet to conceal as much as it reveals. Marked by centuries of commentary and marginal notes, the text bears witness to those who sought to interpret, safeguard, or reshape it for their purposes. Some notes appear to correct or clarify passages, while others add cryptic comments that suggest secrecy or coded meaning. These interjections show that the manuscript was not static. It existed in dialogue with successive generations, each leaving subtle traces of interpretation or intention. Such activity implies the text held significance beyond simple record-keeping. It may have served as a living document of authority, ideology, or esoteric knowledge, continuously reshaped by those with access. Haunted by murmurs of hidden lineages and illicit interpretations, the manuscript draws scholars into ever deeper layers of mystery. Folklore surrounding the Oera Linda book suggests that it was once circulated among select families or societies, perhaps as a guide to ritual, governance, or hidden knowledge. Legends claim the text contains warnings or prophecies, though separating authentic content from later myth-making proves nearly impossible. Modern enthusiasts and occultists alike have found in it inspiration or authority, sometimes exaggerating its claims, while serious scholarship remains cautious, aware that any misstep could either discredit or dangerously elevate the manuscript's reputation. Its pages remain closed to certainty, hinting at truths that straddle the edge of history and myth. For every researcher who studies it, questions multiply rather than resolve. Were these records factual, allegorical, or a deliberate blend meant to preserve knowledge while obscuring it from casual scrutiny? Each reading reveals patterns previously unnoticed, leaving open the possibility of hidden meanings or lost wisdom. The manuscript endures not merely as a historical curiosity, but as a testament to human desire to record, to transmit, and to guard knowledge across generations, daring anyone bold enough to trace the line between past and legend. Its pages remain closed to certainty, hinting at truths that straddle the edge of history and myth. Hidden Library of Alexandria, Egypt. Legends speak of wisdom so vast it threatened to reshape thought itself. The Library of Alexandria has existed in memory more than in stone, a repository of knowledge that scholars and rulers alike revered and feared. Ancient accounts describe scrolls covering every conceivable discipline, from mathematics and astronomy to poetry, medicine, and philosophy. Yet the very vastness of this intellect seems to have invited secrecy, a sense that some truths were never meant to circulate beyond the city's walls. The allure of such a place endures because it represents both achievement and loss, a repository of human ambitions snatched from the grasp of time. Treatises on forgotten sciences, philosophies that vanished with their authors, and scrolls never cited outside Alexandria populate these tales. Some accounts mention texts recording distant lands, languages, or peoples unknown elsewhere, while others hint at predictive or observational knowledge centuries ahead of its time. The organisation of this intellectual wealth was reputedly meticulous, with catalogues, indexes, and copies intended to preserve ideas for generations. Yet even these systems could not guarantee survival. Every reference to the library's holdings seems partial, incomplete, or contradictory, leaving historians to piece together a patchwork vision from fragments alone. Strangers and historians alike wrote of scholars consulting texts that seem impossible to verify today. Greek philosophers are said to have studied there, as well as travellers who carried knowledge across the Mediterranean. Some accounts describe debates conducted over scrolls long since vanished, while others recount the theft or borrowing of documents whose fate remains unknown. The library's reach extended beyond mere physical walls. Its influence shaped thought, policy, and cultural development, yet always at the edge of certainty. For every claim recorded, there remains another that erases, contradicts, or obscures it, enhancing the aura of mystery surrounding the institution. Hints of forgotten correspondence and scholarly networks suggest the library's influence extended far beyond Alexandria itself. Letters between thinkers, copied extracts of scrolls, and anecdotal references indicate that ideas originating in the library travelled across the Mediterranean and into distant intellectual circles. These connections imply that knowledge thought lost may have subtly shaped developments in mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy elsewhere, leaving a hidden imprint on the course of human thought. Even absence of the original texts, their echoes persisted through teachers, students, and scribes who preserved fragments, creating a web of influence that modern historians can only partially trace. Political intrigue, decrees, and neglect converged to erase what might have altered the course of knowledge. Wars, civil unrest, and the ambitions of rulers intersected with chance fires and deliberate suppression, obliterating texts that might otherwise have survived. Some historians argue that censorship played a role, removing ideas considered heretical or dangerous. Others suggest that the very scale of the library rendered it vulnerable. Without continuous guardianship, the immense collection was scattered, hidden, or destroyed, leaving only tantalizing glimpses of its former contents. Later thinkers found traces in quotations, allusions, or partial manuscripts hinting at ideas far ahead of their time. References in classical texts, marginal notes, or the surviving works of scholars hint at discoveries and theories that may have originated in Alexandria. Mathematical principles, early scientific observations, or philosophical concepts preserved indirectly demonstrate that the library housed knowledge not repeated elsewhere. Even these faint echoes inspire debate, speculation, and reverence. They remind modern observers of the potential of human thought, lost to the ephemeral nature of preservation. Stories and myths elevated the library to a symbol of ultimate understanding, a cautionary emblem of knowledge lost. Poets, novelists, and philosophers have all drawn upon its legend, imagining halls filled with scrolls that could illuminate the universe or expose hidden truths. It became both inspiration and warning, a place where the pursuit of understanding met the fragility of human institutions. Myths conflated fact and imagination, suggesting hidden rooms, invisible archives, or texts removed from public view, yet the library's mystique persisted even as historical certainty waned. Some suggest certain works were secreted away, their content deliberately hidden to protect or control the flow of ideas. These claims are supported by occasional mentions of private collections, unknown owners, or texts said to vanish into silence. Scholars speculate that select documents may have been copied, transported, or guarded in ways that ensured they would not enter common knowledge. If true, such actions would have created a parallel archive, one whose existence might never be fully confirmed, leaving the library as both lost and partially preserved, tantalizing observers across centuries. Its wisdom endures only in shadow, whispering questions humanity has yet to answer. For every historian who attempts to reconstruct the scope of Alexandria's intellect, the library recedes further into legend, its true extent impossible to verify. The surviving hints, quotations, references, and scholarly debates offer glimpses of brilliance lost, yet also underscore the limits of what can be known. The library remains a symbol of both the potential of human curiosity and the vulnerability of knowledge itself, inviting endless speculation and leaving an enduring sense of awe for what has vanished without a trace. Its wisdom endures only in shadow, whispering questions humanity has yet to answer. Dead Sea Copper Cave Artifacts, Israel. Curious objects crafted from aged copper defy conventional understanding. Hidden for centuries within the cliffs and caves along the Dead Sea, these artifacts have long challenged scholars and explorers. Unlike typical archaeological discoveries, the items exhibit a combination of design, composition, and context that seems at odds with accepted historical timelines. Even their physical arrangement within the caves suggests purposeful concealment, as if the original custodians intended the objects to be discovered only by those who knew where or when to look. Their quiet presence has fueled speculation for decades, yet little of this knowledge has entered mainstream archaeology, leaving the artifacts cloaked in secrecy. Their surfaces bear intricate markings and designs, seemingly deliberate yet elusive in meaning. Copper sheets show precise cuts and uniform thicknesses, while rings and implements are decorated with patterns that do not appear elsewhere in regional archaeology. Some markings resemble symbolic inscriptions, but whether they convey information, serve ritualistic purposes, or indicate ownership remains unknown. The craftsmanship is so refined that even experts in ancient metallurgy are confounded, suggesting techniques or knowledge that do not align with the assumed technological capabilities of the era. Each artifact challenges the boundary between utility and enigma. Tests suggest an origin far older than historical records would allow, casting doubt on conventional chronologies. Stratigraphic evidence places certain objects in sediment layers associated with prehistoric periods long before known metallurgy became common in the region. Radiocarbon dating of nearby organic material supports these claims, and some analyses hint at exposure to conditions indicating extraordinary antiquity. If accurate, these artifacts imply either an early mastery of copperwork previously unknown, or the existence of a lost civilization whose skills have vanished from history. Either possibility disrupts established narratives of human development. Microscopic examination reveals subtle features that magnify the mystery. Tiny tool marks, the result of careful shaping and polishing, indicate a deliberate knowledge of metal properties, yet the methods employed remain inexplicable by known techniques of the era. Traces of alloys not widely documented in contemporary archaeology suggest experimentation with materials now forgotten. Even simple objects, such as copper rings or pins, carry details that hint at both ritualistic significance and functional innovation, raising questions about the culture that produced them and the purposes they served. Authorities quietly removed the artifacts from public view, leaving few formal records. Early reports circulated among local scholars and archaeologists hint at concern that the findings might disrupt accepted historical and technological timelines. Some objects were transferred to secure storage, others were archived in private collections, and almost no comprehensive publications emerged. Attempts by researchers to access the items often met bureaucratic resistance, fueling speculation that the artifacts were deliberately obscured to prevent controversy or to maintain academic orthodoxy. Their suppression has only intensified the aura of mystery. Theories about the artifact's purpose range widely. Some suggest ritualistic functions, possibly linked to ceremonial practices or religious observances. Others propose technological applications, hinting at knowledge lost to time, perhaps even prototypes or experimental designs predating known metallurgy. A few items defy categorization entirely, neither functional nor ceremonial, suggesting that their creators pursued purposes now invisible to us. Each hypothesis remains tentative, constrained by limited access and fragmentary evidence, leaving the artifact's true significance tantalizingly out of reach. Advanced imaging, chemical analysis, and metallurgical studies have illuminated further enigmas. Spectrometry has revealed unusual copper alloys, while microscopic examination uncovers precision shaping that ancient techniques cannot easily replicate. These studies hint at a culture with a sophisticated understanding of metals, possibly integrating knowledge now lost. Even modern science can offer only partial explanations, deepening the sense that the artifacts bridge known history and a forgotten past. Their anomalies provoke both fascination and frustration among researchers attempting to reconcile them with conventional timelines. Stories of these artifacts seeped into local lore, intertwining with centuries-old legends. Bedouin tales speak of hidden chambers, sacred implements, and rituals performed in the shadowed recesses of desert cliffs. Oral histories preserve fragments of knowledge, occasionally aligning with what archaeologists have documented, yet always leaving gaps open to interpretation. These narratives suggest that the objects were not merely utilitarian but deeply integrated into the spiritual or cultural life of the region. The convergence of folklore and archaeology creates a layered mystery, one that resists resolution and invites continual reinterpretation. Hints of connections with other ancient sites suggest a broader web of influence. Some scholars speculate that similar copper items may have existed in distant regions, possibly indicating trade, cultural exchange, or shared technological knowledge. Patterns of craftsmanship, design, and alloy composition bear subtle parallels with artifacts found in areas hundreds of miles away, though none align perfectly. If such networks existed, they imply a complex interconnected ancient world whose full scope is now lost, leaving these Dead Sea artifacts as rare and tantalizing glimpses into a vanished system of knowledge. They remain silent witnesses, guarding secrets humanity has barely begun to comprehend. Despite meticulous study, sophisticated analysis, and decades of inquiry, the artifacts defy easy classification. Each revelation seems to deepen the mystery, uncovering details that challenge assumptions about technology, culture, and chronology in the ancient Near East. The Dead Sea copper objects linger at the edge of understanding, a persistent reminder that history contains corners yet unexplored, and truths still hidden beneath layers of sand and time. The copper remnants lie in quiet darkness, holding histories that may never surface and questions that may never find answers. Vatican Chronovisor, Italy. A machine rumoured to capture the echoes of history has long fascinated those within and beyond the Vatican. Allegedly constructed in the mid-20th century, the Chronovisor is said to allow observers to witness past events with startling clarity. Accounts suggest it was not a mere optical device, but a complex integration of electronic components, lenses, and unknown mechanisms capable of translating temporal remnants into visible images. Though no verified photographs or recordings survive, the mere existence of the Chronovisor has inspired speculation, whispers of secrecy, and a tension between curiosity and authority that persists to this day. Constructed in the shadow of post-war reconstruction, the device occupies a space between science and secrecy. Italy, grappling with the aftermath of global conflict, provided a backdrop in which clandestine experimentation could flourish. According to various sources, the Vatican, with its considerable resources and networks of scholars, scientists, and engineers, quietly pursued research that blurred the lines between theology, physics, and temporal observation. This convergence of disciplines, rare even in contemporary laboratories, positioned the Chronovisor as a unique nexus of knowledge, drawing interest from both religious and scientific communities while remaining largely hidden from public scrutiny. Described as a combination of electronic apparatus, optical lenses, and unknown components, the Chronovisor defies easy categorization. Witnesses claim it contained oscillating circuits, crystal assemblies, and specialized viewing screens, each calibrated to capture what they called the residual vibrations of historical events. Some accounts describe adjustments that could focus on specific times or locations, while others suggest that the device could filter layers of temporal information to reconstruct complex scenes. The descriptions are inconsistent, fragmented, and often contradictory, yet they collectively portray a machine of sophistication that surpasses conventional understanding, prompting questions about both its feasibility and the intentions behind its creation. Priest engineers and scientists offered testimonies that hint at both possibility and danger. Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk most frequently associated with the Chronovisor, claimed to have witnessed scenes from Roman triumphs, biblical moments, and long-forgotten ceremonies. Other collaborators reportedly corroborated fragments of his observations, though names and documentation remain scarce. These accounts often include strikingly precise details, from architectural layouts to spoken phrases, yet their reliability is debated, complicated by decades of hearsay and deliberate obfuscation. The testimonies themselves have become part of the mystery, casting shadows over what might be historical record, imagination, or a controlled narrative. Documents suggest that certain church authorities quickly restricted access, citing concerns over knowledge and power. Some officials reportedly feared the implications of observing past events with such clarity, ethical, theological, and political dilemmas that could arise from possessing this insight. Other communications hint at the Vatican's desire to prevent potential misuse, or perhaps to protect the institution itself from the disruptive weight of such revelations. Whatever the motivations, the Chronovisor appears to have been quietly dismantled or sealed away, leaving only fragments of evidence and the persistent question of whether the device ever truly functioned as claimed. If the device functioned as described, it would allow observers to witness events long past, rewriting perceptions of history. Scholars speculate that such a capability could illuminate obscure occurrences, validate contested accounts, or reveal knowledge otherwise lost to time. Yet the very possibility raises profound questions. How would such revelations affect our understanding of faith, science, and human agency? Could a single individual viewing the past alter interpretations of morality, power, or culture? Even speculation touches upon philosophical territory, suggesting that the Chronovisor, real or imagined, exists as much in the realm of conceptual intrigue as in physical reality. Researchers and skeptics have sought evidence, but the trail remains fragmented and tantalizingly incomplete. Attempts to replicate descriptions of the device in modern laboratories, using advanced optics or electromagnetic techniques, have produced no verifiable results. Archival investigations uncover only scattered references in personal correspondence, secondary publications, or marginal notes within Vatican records. Each lead raises more questions than answers, and each failure to replicate or verify the Chronovisor's functionality only deepens the allure of its secrecy. Scholars continue to debate whether it represents lost technology, imaginative myth, or a combination of both. Interest in the Chronovisor persists in popular and academic circles alike, shaping cultural narratives and inspiring speculation about the boundaries of human knowledge. Writers, theorists, and enthusiasts examine the implications of a machine capable of visualizing the past, intertwining the idea with broader questions of time, memory, and history. The Vatican itself, maintaining official silence, reinforces the mystique, allowing the Chronovisor to occupy a liminal space between possibility and myth. Whether treated as a historical curiosity, a cautionary tale, or a symbol of forbidden knowledge, the machine remains a focal point for those drawn to the unexplained intersections of science, religion, and history. Myth or reality, the Chronovisor remains, a shadowed doorway to whatever truths time has chosen to keep. London Hammer, Texas, USA. Encased in hardened rock, a simple iron hammer challenges assumptions about time itself. Discovered near London, Texas, in the early 1930s by a local couple digging near a creek bed, the hammer's metal head protruded slightly from a dense concretion. Initial attempts to remove it were cautious, as the surrounding stone resisted simple extraction. The couple, unsure of the object's significance, alerted local authorities. Word quickly spread, and scholars began to debate whether this was a hoax, a geological anomaly, or something more profound. Newspapers printed sensational accounts, yet scientists approached the find with careful skepticism, noting the need for methodical study rather than speculation. Metallurgists examined the object, noting its composition and apparent age. The hammer's head is composed of iron with traces of zinc and other metals consistent with known alloys, while the handle, though partially preserved, retains its wooden core. The metal shows no signs of modern forging techniques, yet retains a uniform shape suggestive of careful manufacture. Spectroscopic analyses conducted decades later confirmed that the metal had oxidized over time, though not to the degree expected for an artifact supposedly encased in stone for millions of years. These contradictory findings fueled debate and highlighted the tension between empirical observation and conventional chronology, leaving researchers uncertain whether the hammer was a curiosity of natural processes or a relic from a forgotten past. The sandstone encasing the hammer is part of an ancient deposit typically formed over millions of years. Its compacted layers, rich in minerals and calcium carbonate, suggest a long, gradual process that contradicts the presence of a man-made tool within it. Experts note that concretion can form around objects left in softer sediment, yet replicating the exact density, mineral composition, and hardness observed at the London site has proven extremely difficult. Careful inspection reveals no evidence of cracks, intrusion, or modern tampering, reinforcing the perplexity of the find. The juxtaposition of a seemingly modern tool in ancient stone creates a riddle that continues to resist conventional geological explanation. Geologists studying the surrounding concretion have pointed out that the hammer's position defies typical sedimentary processes. While some argue that it could have fallen into a fissure in the rock long after formation, careful analysis of mineral alignment and deposition patterns undermines this explanation. Concretion typically forms around softer materials over long periods, yet the hammer appears fully encased without displacing the surrounding matrix. This anomaly has prompted some to consider whether unusual or unknown geological forces may have contributed to its preservation, though no consensus exists within mainstream science. Mainstream scientists offered explanations ranging from natural intrusion to hoax, each attempting to reconcile the anomaly with known timelines. Skeptics argued that concretion could form around objects left in sedimentary deposits, or that the hammer was dropped into soft sediment long after the rock formed, later cementing naturally. Others suggested it was a clever forgery, designed to provoke curiosity or sensationalism. Yet, analyses of both the concretion and the hammer itself often fail to align fully with these explanations, leaving a small but persistent faction convinced that something extraordinary has occurred, an event that may challenge established understandings of both history and geology. Some researchers propose extraordinary scenarios, from lost civilizations to unrecognized temporal phenomena. Could an advanced culture have existed far earlier than current archaeology allows? Or might the hammer have been displaced through some unknown geological or temporal process? Such ideas, while largely dismissed in academic circles, persist in fringe research and among those captivated by anomalies that challenge conventional timelines. Each hypothesis, however improbable, underscores the enduring fascination with the London hammer and its apparent defiance of chronological logic. The hammer captured the imagination of enthusiasts worldwide, appearing in books, documentaries, and online debates. Its story has inspired discussions about human history, unexplained artifacts, and the possibility of forgotten civilizations. While mainstream archaeology largely overlooks the case, popular culture has elevated the hammer into a symbol of hidden knowledge and temporal mystery. Exhibitions and private collections have occasionally displayed the object, though its full context is rarely emphasized, allowing its paradox to remain intact in the public imagination. Recent attempts to analyze and replicate conditions continue to yield enigmatic results, leaving more questions than answers. Modern laboratory testing, including metallurgical analysis, radiographic imaging, and microscopic examination of the concretion, has not conclusively resolved its origin or age. Experiments attempting to recreate similar embedding processes artificially demonstrate that the conditions required are extraordinarily rare, further mystifying the hammer's placement. Even in the 21st century, the London hammer retains its ability to challenge assumptions and provoke discussion about what might lie hidden in plain sight, just beneath the surface of established timelines. Be it geological oddity, archaeological mystery, or symbol of knowledge lost, the London hammer persists, its silence suggesting that history at times guards its own truths. Gobekli Tepe Buried Layers, Turkey. At first glance, the plain seems unremarkable, yet colossal stones rise from it, hinting at a forgotten ambition. Visitors approaching the site are struck by the scale and precision of the pillars, many engraved with animal figures, abstract symbols, and enigmatic reliefs. The arrangement of these stones suggests more than simple construction. It conveys a sense of purpose, an order that feels deliberate and deeply meaningful. Scholars have long debated how humans, at a time when farming was in its infancy and cities non-existent, could have assembled such massive monoliths with tools that were themselves rudimentary. The surface structures are impressive, but they may represent only the smallest fraction of what once existed beneath the earth. Beneath the surface, layers of stone and soil conceal chambers that may have been hidden deliberately. Early excavations revealed that entire sections of Gobekli Tepe were buried, a practice that appears intentional rather than accidental. Pillars that once stood in the open were covered with soil, leaving only portions visible to later generations. The reason for this concealment remains unknown. Some suggest ritual closure, a desire to preserve sacred spaces, while others speculate it was meant to hide knowledge or power from prying eyes. The deliberate burial adds an element of psychological tension. What lies beneath has been waiting untouched for thousands of years. Etched figures of animals, abstract motifs, and inexplicable symbols speak to rituals long lost to time. Foxes, snakes, boars, and birds appear alongside geometric patterns that resist straightforward interpretation. Each carving seems precise, intentional, and imbued with significance that modern observers can only guess at. Some scholars argue that the motifs represent cosmological knowledge, seasonal cycles, or mythic stories, while others propose they are markers of spiritual practice or social order. The ambiguity is compelling, leaving room for interpretation but offering no definitive answers. Every symbol seems designed to provoke curiosity and caution in equal measure. The construction predates cities, farming, and organized society, challenging assumptions about human capability. Radiocarbon dating places the earliest layers at around 12,000 years ago, a time when humans were transitioning from nomadic lifestyles to settled communities. The scale of labor, coordination, and planning required to erect these stones implies organizational sophistication previously unimagined for the period. Tools of wood and stone appear to have sufficed, yet the precision of carving and placement remains extraordinary. The site raises questions about what humans were capable of long before recorded history began to chronicle their achievements. Only slivers of the subterranean depths have been brought to light. The rest lie silently beyond human gaze. Archaeologists have chosen caution, partly to preserve the integrity of the site and partly because the true extent remains uncertain. Some pillars lie in chambers never fully exposed, while other areas are inaccessible due to collapsed sediment or unstable soil. Modern technology allows glimpses beneath the surface, but even advanced scanning methods cannot convey the full scope of what has been intentionally hidden. The secrecy, whether deliberate or practical, enhances the sense of mystery surrounding Gobekli Tepe, creating a tension between revealed knowledge and concealed truth. Every pillar, carving, and alignment seems to convey meaning that slips just beyond understanding. Certain pillars appear positioned according to celestial patterns, while others are arranged in circles whose purpose is opaque. Scholars have speculated about astronomical alignments, ritual pathways, or symbolic representations of societal hierarchy. Yet no interpretation satisfies fully, leaving a sense that the site communicates something intentionally cryptic. Observers cannot help but feel the weight of intent behind the stones, as though the builders embedded a message across millennia that continues to resist translation. Drawn by the site's silent presence, archaeologists, travelers, and researchers cannot help but wonder what secrets lie beneath. The experience of walking among the pillars evokes both awe and unease. The scale of human ambition, the precision of construction, and the deliberate concealment of entire sections stir questions that extend beyond history and into the realm of the unknown. Gobekli Tepe exerts a subtle pull on those who study it, as if the buried layers themselves are aware of being observed, yet remain perfectly silent. Though the stones conceal what cannot be known, their weight carries a presence that drifts through every echo of the plain.